Now I know what you're thinking. Jason, 91 Madden games? That doesn't make sense. I mean, he's not even 91 years old. Well, John Madden's dead, and you are right. Even if they made a Madden game for every year that he was alive, they wouldn't have gotten to 91. But you're not taking into consideration the variations. So every Madden game came out and it had the same title, like Madden 95 was the same name on everything, but it was not the same game. Like, these are not the same game, basically. Madden 95 on the Genesis and Madden 95 on the Game Gear, two completely different games. But the counterpoint to that, just because they're on different systems doesn't mean that they're different games. Like, for example, Madden 95 on the Super Nintendo that I don't have, I would consider the same game as Madden 95 on the Genesis. Here's a more concrete example. Madden 16 on the PS4 and Madden 16 on the Xbox One, these are exactly the same game. You feel me? So I actually made a chart. This took quite a bit of effort, where I mapped out every year of Madden and the different platforms they came up with, and I determined that there are 91 different unique Madden releases. So I sat down and I played every single one of them, and I'm not kidding, this isn't clickbait. This is not, I played every Madden and then I only went back to 2014 like a certain other video I've seen online. I have over 70 hours of gameplay footage for this, if you think I didn't do my research. Now, for some of these games, it means that I only played one quarter. Some of these, it means I played through multiple games and I checked out franchise mode and I simmed through half the season and played half the games. There's varying degrees of played in this video. Anyway, starting with the very first Madden game, which was a DOS release, it certainly is something. Of course, there's the iconic intro that everybody knows and loves, straight out of a horror game. And let me tell you, it's a miracle they made any other Madden games after this, because it's atrocious. This is one of the worst games ever, and I can't imagine anybody ever having fun with it. But once they got that out of the way, we got to John Madden Football on the Sega Genesis, which is a game we all know and love. So when Madden died, this was the game that shot up in value. This is like a $40 or $50 game now, hence why I don't own it. Most of the games I own, most of them I tracked down, and most of the footage you're seeing came from original hardware. And I'll point out when it's emulated or I got it through any other means. So this was EverDrive footage from my Genesis. And the original Madden is very bare bones. There's no season, there's no nothing like that. There's definitely no franchise mode or career mode or mini games or anything like that. It's just fucking football. It's just you pick two teams, you play football, there's no real teams, there's no real players. And it freaked out with my 6-button Genesis controller, so I had to switch to a 3-button pad just to play this. That was already kind of annoying. I think it's very cute how when it's controlled by the CPU, it says you're playing John Madden as if he's the guy controlling the computer teams. That's very fun. Of course, in these old-timey Maddens, you have all the bizarro formations that you would never see in an actual football game these days, like the near and the far. You'll see these all throughout the Madden games of the 90s. What's strange about these super early ones, though, and in the original, is that you need to pick substitution packages in addition to your formations. So normally in a modern Madden game, you pick the I formation, and naturally the personnel to run that formation will just come in. They're tied together. But not so here. You need to pick a heavy package, a speed package, a jumbo package, whatever different substitution sets they have. But the annoying part comes in where you need to physically wait for the characters to run in from off the sideline and the ones you have to run back to your sideline. It takes like 10 to 15 seconds every time you want to change a substitution package, so it's really annoying. It actually makes it so you want to stick to the same one just so you don't have to wait for the substitutions. I found that it was impossible to play coverage on defense. Like, take a look at this. I try and break up the pass, and it looks like I have it, but I don't. Of course, it's super basic. Every player looks exactly the same, which is lame. It only lets you play 5 or 15-minute quarters, which, come on, man, give me some more options. We're not actually going to get a lot more options for a long time. There's only 17 teams in this game, despite there being 29 in the NFL at the time, which is strange, not very real. And yeah, that's the original Madden. It's not that good, but at least it's better than the DOS release. Next up, we have Madden 92. Did I actually pay $3 for this? I sure as heck did, and I paid more for quite a few other ones. There's still no real teams in this game, but they did add weather, so that's something. And this time, the teams actually have different attributes. You see, before, in the original, all of the teams were just carbon copies of each other. In this one, they're actually more closer to mimicking their real-life counterparts. The playbook system and the substitution packages seems like it's exactly the same as the original. In the formations, I thought it was funny that the halfback and fullback are reversed. I don't know if this is just how football terminology has changed over the years, and maybe at one time the half and fullback were swapped from what we know them as now. I just know that in this game, they're not referred to what they would be in future Madden games, and really, because they're referred to that way in Madden games, that's how the rest of the world sees them now. There's a bunch of other little flourishes, like the chain measuring animation, but overall, this is still an incredibly basic Madden game. Of course, this one is famous for the ambulance coming onto the field and running over guys to get to the injured player. I was not willing to play the game long enough for an injury to happen to see this, but it's cute. It shows that EA was not above having fun with these things, at least early on. Then, Madden 93. Did I really pay $10 for this one? Yeah, that's the duality of Madden. Sometimes you pay $3, sometimes you pay $10. This one came with a fat stack of stuff, though. If I can stop everything from falling out. What fell out? A poster, yeah. Imagine hanging this on your wall. Just a bunch of plays. That's all it is it's actually really thick. Wow. I would feel bad tacking this to the wall. I would have to get it framed. It's just a bunch of plays. That's so stupid. What kind of a geek would you have to be to hang this on your wall? Oh boy, the manual is so thick too. I don't have the manual for 92, I just have the box. Oh, this is good stuff. Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just gushing over the manual. The game itself was definitely a step up, and you get hyped immediately because of this awesome intro music that's been playing, which was composed by the legendary Rob Hubbard, who is responsible for many of those Commodore 64 chiptunes, those really famous ones like like that. He did that. He did that one. Basically, if it's a really famous Commodore 64 chiptune, there's a good chance that this is the guy who did it. After that era, he got a job at EA and made awesome intro themes to a whole bunch of Genesis-era EA Sports games. The PGA Tour games have some good ones. This is an excellent one. This game added the no-huddle offense, according to the back of the box anyway. That is not something I made use of, and it's interesting that it's there. This is based on Buffalo's famous no-huddle offense of the 90s. We finally have the proper number of teams, as well as some historic teams. There's actually another version of Madden 93 called the Championship or Legacy Edition or something that only includes like old teams, legacy teams. In this, we have teams like the 72 Dolphins, the 85 Bears, the 82 Redskins, the 84 49ers. You know, all the greats, all the classic Super Bowl winning teams that are considered the best are in this, but you have to remember it's 1993, so a whole bunch of football history hasn't happened yet. This was the first Madden game that allowed you to save. The previous one did have a season mode, but you weren't able to save it. In this one, you're actually able to save your season and continue it where you left off, which is a huge advancement. I almost feel bad saying this, but on the field, I think I prefer 92. This one felt like it moved slower to me, and there were all sorts of weird features that didn't seem like they worked super well, such as these weird crowd shots when a big play happens. They're so poorly implemented and they just look like shit, so they really don't get what they're supposed to be. It doesn't get the idea across very well. This is the first Madden with voice clips, which would of course become a staple, and you would be hearing a lot more of that in the CD games, of course. I scored a touchdown on a halfback pass, which is very cool. I'm not sure if that play was in the other games. And when you score, there's a nice little drive summary screen at the end. Next up, we have Madden 94. I just have the manual and the cartridge. I don't have the case. Strangely, right? I actually got these separate. Funnily enough, the Madden 94 manual was in my copy of Madden 95 that I bought for this video, and then I found the cartridge just loose. So yeah, Madden 94 dropped the John from the title. As you can see, it's just called Madden 94 and not John Madden Football 94.
Hi everyone, welcome to John Madden Football.
There's a very impressive opening graphic with the credits, which is such an old EA thing. I wish that they did more of this. We finally have real teams in this game, but not the players yet, just the real teams, which is a weird, uncanny valley to be in. Honestly, I think I would just rather them go full generic than have half and half, because it's very strange to have the teams but not the players. On the field, this is obviously the biggest step up we have seen so far. It runs smooth. We still have passing windows. If you don't know, in the old Madden games, if you want to pass the ball, this is how it worked. You press the button to hike, and then you had to press a button again to bring up these passing windows in which you could choose your receiver. But honestly, the FOV in this game makes it feel like it's unnecessary. They could have made it work without these passing windows, I believe. This is the first game with a franchise mode, which of course would become a huge staple of the Madden series and the reason to play these games, in my opinion. It's the mode I enjoy most, and still to this day, when I play a modern Madden, I play the franchise mode most often. They got rid of the substitution packages finally. Now they're tied to your formation, which makes the gameplay run a lot faster. I enjoyed the cute little temperature gauges they used to determine which teams are better than the others, which is a system they would use for a couple more years anyway. So yeah, we're gonna put Madden 94 in the Josh Allen tier. So I guess I should explain the tiers of this video. These are all of the quarterbacks which have appeared on the cover of Madden, ranked from, in my own opinion, worst to best, or best to worst, with Patrick Mahomes at the top and Vince Young at the bottom. So when I'm filming this, the Super Bowl has not happened yet, but I'm definitely not going to get the video done before it does, so you will know if Patrick Mahomes won this latest Super Bowl, but I, recording, do not know. So who knows, maybe Tom Brady should be back ahead of him after that, and we don't know yet. That, or I'm very forward thinking and I'm just on the ball and Patrick Mahomes is on top because he's fucking Patrick Mahomes. You know what? I'm calling it. They won. The Chiefs won. I'm just saying it right now. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm leaving it in the video, dang it. But anyway, this video is not about ranking the Madden quarterbacks. Moving on to Madden 95, a fantastic video game. In my opinion, the pinnacle of the 16-bit Maddens. Comes with another poster, comes with a thick, luscious manual, all the fixings, all the good stuff you would want a game like this. Nice, classic EA Sports white background logo. Madden 95 is when they finally got the gameplay just right. It has a much less impressive opening screen than 94, but it makes up for it with this epic Fox Sports music, though. I like this song so much that in my top 100 Super Nintendo video, I actually used the Super Nintendo version of this song for the montage at the end. This is the first Madden game I am comfortable saying that I would go back to and play just to have fun. Not for research purposes, not as a curiosity, but because I actually want to play it. And it would be even better if you could adjust the quarters down from 5 minutes. 5 minutes is still the smallest amount of time you could have in a quarter. I would love it if you could go down to 3, and honestly, that's what would stop me from going back to this more often. But really, just the huge improvements are twofold. One, it's so much faster than 94, and faster in this case means better, because the Madden games, to this point, they've been a bit slow, they've been a bit too caught up in the strategery of football, and now it feels like they're focused on making a fun video game, and I think they succeeded. And also, they got rid of the passing windows finally. The passing windows sucked. You could never get a full context of what was going on with them, and you just kind of had to blind throw. But in this game, they realized that in 94, the field of view was just fine, and they didn't need the passing windows anymore. So in 95, they made it happen. You don't need them to throw to a receiver anymore. You just hit the button you see, and it throws the ball. You still need to hit the extra button after it's snapped, and I was never sure why Madden had you do this, but that was a feature that stuck around all the way until the PS2 era, so no use complaining about it being in 95. So this is the best one yet. We're gonna go all the way up to the Drew Brees tier. Yeah, that seems about right. Next up, we have Madden 96, which was the final Madden game to be the flagship edition of the series for that console. And what I mean by that is the year on the thing is never the year that the Madden actually came out in. It's always the year before. So this was released in 1995. And these games are released in August, to get it out right before the next football season, just for timing reasons. They're pretty much always released in August. I'm not going to look up whether or not this specific one is, but at least nowadays that's how it works, and I'm pretty sure it is how it worked back then. So, in August of 95, the PlayStation and the Saturn were both out in America, so they could have had that year's Madden ready for those systems, but they kind of dropped the ball, and they had one planned, but it got canceled. It was in development hell, and it got canceled. They had it ready for 97, of course, but for 96, they were stuck with just the Genesis version being the flagship. This one included Pat Summerall for the first time, appearing with Madden as co-commentator. And this one uses a lot of JPEGs, just kind of copy and pasted into the game. Oh, look, Tommy Tallarico did the music. That's pretty cool. We finally get a different main menu, which is neat. We can pick from Season Play or Scouting Combine, which is really cool. It's a bunch of mini games. Like, here's the Oklahoma drill, and you can create a player, but they have to be black because every player in the game looks exactly the same and they're all black, which I think is pretty funny. I mean, if they're all going to look the same, they had to make that choice. It's either everyone's going to be black or everyone's going to be white, and everyone being black is more representative. I think the giant team logos on the team selection screen kind of look shitty. It looks cheap, not premium. You can tell these are not graphics they made for the Sega Genesis. They just kind of inserted very compressed images that don't belong in this game. And that's a technique they do a lot of in this game, just for the backgrounds. You'll see just a poorly done image that's compressed to hell and looks like garbage. This game introduced laterals and fair catches, and this is the first game with the Panthers and Jaguars unlocked from the start, although there is a cheat code to get them in 95. I give them props for continuing to develop Madden past 95, because they really got it right with that one. They could have stopped there. But I feel like when I'm playing on the field, despite the visuals definitely looking a little bit better than 95, on the field, I think this is a slightly lesser game. It feels faster, which is normally good, but in this case, I'm not sure I like it more. I don't know, it's strange, but we're gonna go down a tier from 95. Actually, you know what? I think the extra modes make up for it. We'll also put it in the Drew Brees tier. They're close enough. Because it can get worse on the Genesis, and that's where we have Madden 97, which I don't own. This is the first one where this is no longer the flagship version of Madden, of course, because we have the PS1 game now to contend with. Cool intro music. At some point, EA did away with this and you were just getting licensed tracks, but we're not there yet. This is the first game with a free agent mode where you can manipulate the rosters outside of a season. There's even salary numbers. You can see how much everybody in the NFL was making back then. And are these real figures? Was Troy Aikman really only making $2.5 million? I know $2.5 million is a lot of money, but for an NFL contract, even back then, it really wasn't, because Rick Mirer made more, Neil O'Donnell made more. Man, NFL salaries went way up after this. They got rid of the temperature gauges using raw numbers for the team matchups preview, just stripping away a little bit of personality. And I think on the field, this is even another step down. More features in the game, but give me 95 over this. It just seems choppy and slower in the past couple of years. And something that really messed with my game capture is that the game changes resolutions between the on-the-field game, like actually playing, and the play-calling menu. And whenever it changes resolutions, it will trip my Elgato up, and I'll lose signal for a couple seconds, which was really annoying, and pretty much means that I can't go back and play this game if I really want to. I mean, I guess I could play it on the CRT, but if I have any hope of capturing footage, or even just running it through my RetroTink, it'll mess with that. That pretty much makes it a non-starter. It also got rid of the mini games to determine your created player's stats. Now you just have a menu where you attribute the points, which makes it less of a game. It probably makes it more convenient if you actually wanted to get into this, but it also, gamifies it less, which it's a little lamer. We're gonna go down a tier from 95 and 96. And then Madden 98 on the Sega Genesis was the last one, and the only thing they changed was the main menu. It has the same music, but it actually does look different. And this is the first example in a long-standing EA tradition where at the end of a console's lifespan, they will continue to release Madden games, but they will not continue to actually actively develop the Madden games. They will sometimes superficially change the menus, but as you will find out later, that's even optional sometimes. Sometimes they literally, all they do is just change the number graphic where it'll say, I know Madden 11 and 12 on the PS2 were like this, where the only thing they changed was the 11 to a 12 in the rosters, and they just re-released the exact same game. It's kind of pathetic, really. At least this one, they did change the UI, but when you're on the field, this is Madden 97. It's the same game. All right, next. So now that we've covered an entire generation of Madden, we're gonna go back through and fill in the gaps. First, with the Turbo Duo version of Madden. It is the first ever TurboGrafx game I've ever played. I don't own one. I don't know anything about the system, really. I've definitely never played a Turbo CD game. And it's Madden 93 with weird FMVs. That's what this is. It's basically, like, you can tell that they just took Madden 93, ported it to the Turbo, and then added these weird FMVs to it. The FMVs look alright for what they are, but I can't meaningfully put that in any other tier than Michael Vick next to 93. And don't think Michael Vick is a bad tier either. I know it's like all the way down here at the bottom, and you say, well, wait a second, but Michael Vick wasn't a bad football player. Well, that's just the thing, is in order to be on the cover of Madden, generally you need to be a pretty good football player, so it's some tough competition. The only shitty quarterback on this list is Vince Young. Everybody else had their 15 minutes of fame. And in fact, if you want to get assy with me, I think you could convince me to put Dante Culpepper above Michael Vick, just because his two best seasons are much better than Michael Vick's two best seasons, but that's neither here nor there. We shall debate these in the comments, I suspect. Next, we have Madden on 3DO, which is often considered the best Madden of this era. I don't quite agree, because this is the equivalent of a Madden 94. It came out in 1993. Oh wait, no, it came out in 94, according to the date on the back. I don't know if you could see it on the camera. Nah, I'd have to refocus. We're not doing that. For a game that came out simultaneously with 94, it's technologically impressive, but I would rather play the Sega Genesis games. I just think that it plays better. It is cool seeing the FMVs, and I love the 3DO. My next video is going to be a review of a 3DO game, so stay tuned for that. If you're, watching this and you actually care about any other videos I make. The presentation is no doubt very cool to see in a pre-PlayStation 1 world, with the FMVs and just all of the realistic in-game assets of like the team logos and stuff. Even just that we take for granted, but we saw how shitty it looked when they tried to do that on the Sega Genesis in Madden 96. Of course, the characters are not full 3D. It's just a 3D field with 2D images representing the players. And we don't have real players, which, man, for your big Madden on 3DO, like you weren't competing with any other games to get the rights to the players on the 3DO. There was no competing football game on this platform. That's a bummer. So yeah, I'm gonna put Madden 3DO in the Josh Allen tier. Better than most of the ones we've seen so far, but there's a long way up, and I'd rather play 95 or 96. Next up listed, we have the Game Boy games, but I would rather talk about the Game Gear ones first for one specific reason. So on the Game Gear, on this thing in my hand, we had two Madden games. Yes, I actually have them. Because I have a long history with this Madden 95, and this very Game Gear, actually. So, I used to take my Game Gear to high school. Like study hall, I would just play my Game Gear, and Madden 95 was one of the games I played most often. Now, you have to remember, I was in high school in the late 2000s into the early 2010s, so the Game Gear was definitely not cool. This was a douchebag hipster thing to do, but it was something that I did. And probably, yeah, my most played Game Gear game has to be Madden 95. So I have a long personal history with it. I played a lot of games. I made it through many seasons just in study hall at school instead of doing homework, which I should have been doing. I failed every class in high school. I was not responsible. I just played Madden 95 on my Game Gear.
Hi everyone, welcome to John Madden Football.
And revisiting it as an adult, the game sucks. It's a shitty approximation of the Sega Genesis versions of Madden, but like they didn't get it down very well. So it's kind of just like a slower, weirder version of those games that's like 60% as good. It's too slow. The real Madden 95 got rid of the passing windows. The Game Gear version brings them back. I always hated this specific toss play, where the ball is clearly behind my player and then just teleports into his hands. It's just kind of a sloppily put together thing. And the menus, here's a pet peeve of mine in sports games, and Madden especially, because you're doing a lot of play calling, so the menus need to be snappy. The menus need to be good. The menus need to work well. The UI needs to be intuitive, and everything needs to load fast, and everything needs to just work. When you hit the button on the Game Gear thing, like, it needs to go instantly. There can't be a delay. And the menus are loosey-goosey in this game. They suck. The game has bad menus. If a Madden game has bad menus, then it's a bad Madden game. I'm gonna go all the way down to the Dante Culpepper tier with Madden 95 on the Game Gear. This sucks. Like, this is not a fun game. So I had a long personal history with Madden 95 in the Game Gear, but 96 I had never played until this. And ooh boy, wow, what a piece of fucking shit. I could not believe that this game existed when I fucking actually played it. It's a bad sign when the game starts that it uses the exact same music as 95, because that suggests that there's some copy and pasting done here. They didn't actually develop a new game, they just kind of shat out one with new rosters, which is what I thought before it actually started. Madden 95 had real teams, no real players. Had the temperature gauge, had a nice UI. The UI was nice, it was just that the menus were delayed, was my issue. Madden 96, well, first off, smoking gun, this logo looks like shit. A shield with a 96 on it, looks bad. This game doesn't have real teams. 95 had real teams. 96 does not have real teams. In fact, the clones don't even resemble their real-life counterparts. They're completely different. But like the menu, the UI, the gameplay, when you're actually playing football, it is the exact same. They put out another Madden game on Game Gear that was the same thing, the exact same game, copy and pasted, except they removed the actual NFL teams in the sequel year. What? At that point, why bother? This is Madden 96 on Game Gear is a scam. This is one of the most underhanded fucking products I have ever seen in my life. The fact that they have the balls to re-release the same game again, with the only real difference is they took out the teams? What the fuck were they thinking? Why would they... I mean, they would do that because money and trick people into buying your piece of shit game, but my God, what a dastardly, underhanded, dirty, no good, rotten tactic by EA. Man, never change. This is worse than fucking any Ultimate Team scams they've ever done. This is fucking horse shit, and like, I'm mad about it. I'm actually mad about it. I was curious because I had never played 96, and I had such a history with 95. I played a lot of 95 on the Game Gear. Anyway, I'm talking too fucking long about 96 on the goddamn Game Gear. Next up, we have the Madden games on the Game Boy, not the Game Gear. And I wanted to talk about them separately for a very specific reason, and that's because I don't have a long history with these ones. In fact, these are the first times I was playing the Game Boy Madden games, and I was kind of blown away. Madden 95 does not have real teams, and if you're playing on a handheld, you should have options for shorter games. You're still stuck with 5-minute minimum quarters, which is too much. They focused on making a fun game instead of adapting the Genesis ones. And this, believe it or not, Madden on the Game Boy was the very first Madden to not make you press the button twice to pass the ball. Like, you press the button to snap it, and then so far you had to press another button to have like the passing icons come up. I don't know why. Does not happen in the Game Boy ones. You just hike it, and then A is one receiver, B is another receiver. You're limited to only 2 receivers, but hey, I mean, there's only 2 buttons. There's only so much you can do. So that is a limitation, but there's no passing windows. There's nothing like that. You just hit the button and it throws it. The movement is fast and fluid. This was a fun video game. Madden 95 on the Game Gear, on the Game Boy, I keep saying the wrong thing, is a pretty good version of Madden. Unexpectedly so. I think I can go as high as Donovan McNabb tier. Just one below the Genesis ones. I think this is a lot of fun. Madden 96 on the Game Boy is the exact same game. It even has the same title music, which, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But here's where things get interesting. Madden 97 on the Game Boy. You would think after releasing 2 Madden games on your system that were a copy and paste of the same thing, you would think that 97 would just be the same game again. But no, not so fast, my friend. They made from the ground up an entirely new Madden for the Game Boy for 97. And guess what? It's one of the biggest pieces of shits I've ever played. They royally fucked this game up. It is an adaptation of the Game Gear Maddens, which I already didn't like. They're all the way down here in the Dante Culpepper and Vince Young tier for a reason. Because they just don't play well. They're slow, they're shitty, and just all the problems of trying to port the Genesis game, it just comes off as an inferior product. So this is a ripoff of a ripoff. If the Game Gear Maddens are 60% as good as the Genesis Maddens, then Madden 97 on the Game Boy is 60% as good as the Game Gear Maddens. So, like, we've got some serious degradation there. It runs like shit, it's slow as molasses. This is just pathetic. And I don't know why they did this. They just completely fucked it up. Yeah, Vince Young tier. It has to be Vince Young tier. Next up, making the big leap to the next generation is Madden 97 on the PlayStation 1. Did I really pay $5 for it? Kind of. You see, to source games for this video, I did a few things. A bunch of them I already owned, but quite a few I didn't. I would say I bought more than I already owned for this. And the way that I did it is I didn't order a lot of them on eBay or something. I went around to the local retro game stores around here, and I basically just cleaned them out of Madden games, and I also bought a whole bunch of other EA Sports games in case I want to follow this up with another series, like the college games or NBA Live or something, or FIFA, or I don't know, any of the other ones, baseball, NHL, whatever. I got a whole bunch of EA Sports games, and after they tallied everything up, I was like, hey, since these are fucking worthless and I'm getting a whole bunch of them, is there any way I can get any kind of a discount on this? And they did give me one. They knocked like $30 off, and I had a fucking pile. I had so fucking many of them. I just went around. I had like piles of EA Sports games from all these places. So anyway, yeah, Madden 97 on the PS1. I have never been a fan of the PlayStation 1 era of Madden. I feel like they never really got it right. And there are 2 main iterations of the three. There are 3 main iterations of the PS1 era of Madden. And this first one kind of takes the 3DO approach, where it's a 3D environment with the 2D sprites and stuff. And the gameplay just I never felt like it meshed. I always felt like passing was a crapshoot, so I was forced to run the ball more than I would like to. This one adds the Pro Bowl, it says. It also says there's over 100 NFL teams, which doesn't make any sense. I guess they mean historic teams. They're including that in the count. Multiple camera angles? I guess that is an advancement, yeah. You can change the camera angles, and there are replays which show plays from different angles. I guess that is something. I don't know. I've just never really been a fan of how any of the PS1 games played. So I'm going to go Lamar Jackson tier. Can't win in the playoffs. Fine looking regular season at a glance. When the push comes to shove, I don't want to play this game. Next up, 98. I'm showing it here on the Saturn, but the footage is from PlayStation. I don't own it on PlayStation. I did the E-word. I did the naughty E-word to get you PlayStation footage. I didn't feel like hooking up my Saturn just for this. I hooked up a lot of systems just for this. Like, the Saturn wasn't one of them, though. It's more or less just not more 97. It's still 2D players in the 3D world. I did notice that there's no left-handed quarterbacks when I was playing this because I was playing as the Jaguars and Mark Brunell and he threw right-handed. So, I mean, that's kind of shitty. According to the back of the box, this is the one that introduced touch passing, which is how hard you press the button determines what kind of a pass you throw. If you really nail it down, then it's a bullet pass. If you tap, then it's a lob, like that sort of deal. Of course, in the PS2 era with the pressure-sensitive buttons, this would get even more complex. I don't think this game is meaningfully different than 97 though, so I'm just going to put it right next to it in the tier list. Then we have Madden 695. Madden 695. The thing about buying all these games secondhand is it's kind of a bastard to get the stickers off. Like, I could try and peel this off, but it's going to leave some residue. I guess I can get some goo gone or something. I just cut my nails, so this might not work that well. Yeah, let's see. Oh, it actually came off pretty cleanly. That came off more clean than the other ones. You can see the old price sticker. I don't know if it'll focus, but it says $12.99, which is laughable. Who was going to pay $12.99 for this? I was a sucker for paying $7. Anyway, Madden 99 is a step up from 97 and 98. I like the real highlights that they show at the beginning, the FMV. It's not like a cartoony thing that the last games were. It's sort of like watching Jacked Up. You remember Jacked Up? Finally, for the first time in Madden, we have fully customizable quarter length, something I have been banging on about this whole time. You should be able to have quarters that are less than 5 minutes. Players don't have overall ratings, but they have individual ratings for each statistic. This is the one that introduced custom playbooks, I think, where each team has its own playbook instead of it just being a standard one that you choose for everyone and, you know, everybody having access to the same team. In this one, it's more tailored to the team. Oh yeah, I forgot about the big innovation because it wasn't really a big innovation because another Madden game beat them to this, as I will talk about later when we're doing the generation recap. This one uses 3D polygonal models instead of 2D sprites. And it doesn't change the game as much as you would think. In fact, I think it makes it a little bit worse. It's just that the jump to 3D, it needed a bit more time. It just kind of makes the game more clunky, shittier, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but the game if it feels slower and worse, then, you know, I'm not going to want to play it. So, where do I rank 99? We're going to go in the Michael Vick tier. Next, we have Madden 2000, with this awesome rap that starts it. The FMV is much more stylized at the beginning. It's like Jacked Up, but with these really cool animations on top of it. So yeah, as the rap demonstrates, we're now using real songs. We're not using Rob Hubbard stuff anymore. No more awesome chip tunes, no more cool title themes. Licensed tracks from here on out, which, you know, is good and bad. I lament the loss of Rob Hubbard. I don't think he's dead. I mean, from the Madden games, but the licensed soundtracks would eventually become a huge part of the appeal. There's like a hot and cold system in this game where if the players are doing well, they'll glow purple. And they introduced this arcade mode, which actually makes the game fun. The traditional mode is just like 99, and I think it kind of sucks and it's slow and boring. But the arcade mode is fun. But the only thing is the announcer, instead of Madden and Summerall, is the snarky EA Sports voice. You know, like the EA Sports, it's in the game. Like, that's the play-by-play voice.
1st and 10.
It doesn't fit. It's really weird, especially since they did actually pair it with Madden. So it's like the snarky play-by-play voice, and then Madden will come in and say something. It's just strange.
I'll tell you something. You can't throw it any better than that.
1st and goal.
But this is definitely better if just because the arcade mode raises it up for me. We're going to go back to Lamar Jackson tier with 97. Then we have Madden 2001 for the PlayStation 1. You know it's for PlayStation 1 because the back is black. I don't have the real case, I just have this. So this was a simul release with the PlayStation 2 version. The PlayStation 2 version was a launch title for the system, but this was just the legacy release, I guess, for anybody who wasn't picking that up. The cover art was Eddie George. I'll talk about the Madden curse in the PS2 part of the video, but this was the first one that didn't have Madden on the cover. Not that you would know it from the PS1 version here, because there's nothing on the disc. They took away the arcade mode, which sucks. That was my big bugaboo with that. But they did beef up the features. Franchise mode is a lot more in-depth. Now there's in-depth record keeping. Like, there's a record book with high scores and stuff that you could set. What's interesting about the record book, though, is that they didn't get the rights to most legacy players. So if they're not an active NFL player when this was made, they probably don't have the rights to use their names. So a lot of the record book is unintelligible. Like, who is RB number 5? He's the all-time leading scorer. I can't think of an old-timey running back that wore number 5 that would be the all-time leading scorer in NFL history. Like, I don't even have a guess on who that is, and I like to fancy myself a pretty big football historian, but I don't even have a guess. I would have to look that up. It doesn't even tell you what team they played for. But this is inconsistent, though, because somebody like Night Train Lane is listed as the interception record holder for a season with 14, and he played all the way back in the 50s, so they got his license. They could use his likeness. And by the way, 14 interceptions in the 50s, that is ridiculous considering they didn't even pass the ball back then. You would think after like 12 or 13, they'd stop throwing the ball to his half of the field. Like, Jesus, they're throwing the ball 10 times a game and he still managed to get 14 interceptions. That's ridiculous. Not to mention the season was only 12 games back then. So you got 14 interceptions in 12 games in an era where they barely threw the ball. That is insane. In addition to the record book, there's this cool Super Bowl history thing, but it's just a list of scores and MVPs, with Kurt Warner being the most recent and the St. Louis Rams being the most recent winners. But even for some of these, they don't have the rights. Like, instead of Joe Montana, it's QB number 16, or instead of Syracuse legend Larry Zonka, it's RB number 39. Lame, but at least they tried. I'm bummed that they took away the arcade mode, though, and I think that's gonna reflect on how I rank it. Honestly, with the more in-depth franchise mode, I would want to go above 2000, but I think that just brings it back down to the same tier. I think we gotta go Lamar Jackson tier for 01. And guess what? I don't even really need to talk about the rest of them, because Madden 2002, Madden 2003, Madden 2004, and Madden 2005 all came out on the PS1, but guess what? They're the exact same game as Madden 2001 on the PS1. They didn't even really change the menus. It's some of the most pathetic re-releases ever, really. In fact, you could even talk me into going a full tier lower because they're so blatant. But no, we'll put them in Lamar Jackson with 2001. So there weren't nearly as many spin-off Maddens this time around on the PS1 era, but we did get a few on the Game Boy Color, so let's go over those. First up was 2000, which is sort of like if there ever was an NES Madden, like an alternate reality where that was a thing. Frustrating that even in 2000, they were still having problems with the NFL license on handhelds because this still has no real players. It does, however, at least have the real teams, which would have been pathetic if it didn't. Unfortunately, however, it's from that rotten strain that originated with the Game Gear games. This is Madden 97, only with color and real teams, which I suppose makes it a slight upgrade, even though I would never want to play this ever. Look, here's the same toss play I complained about with the Game Gear Maddens, where the ball just teleports to the running back. Yeah, this is bad. It looks like shit. It plays like shit. An adaptation of probably my least favorite one so far. Boo Earns, Dante Culpepper tier. Then 2001 had Link Play? That's pretty cool. I wish I had a chance to try that. So I wasn't expecting much, but then I hit play and wait a second, what's this? Wow. People must have complained about 2000 because 2001 is built on top of the Game Boy Maddens, as in 95 and 96, and not the Game Gear ones. Holla fucking Luya. Unbelievably still, it does not have real players. But just like the Game Boy ones, it's fun. It's the same game, just with color. I am so thankful that eventually, whichever studio was in charge of these handheld Maddens came to their senses and decided that the Game Boy ones were superior. I'm getting a little choked up over this. It's like they had a villainous arc for a while, and then the handheld Maddens redeemed themselves in time to usher in a whole new era. Except not really, because they squeezed one more game out of the Game Boy Color. And it's the exact same game, of course. Still no real players. And if you're not going to have real players, might I question the point of having yearly releases if they're just going to be the exact same game? That's stupid. I almost want to put it a tier down because of that, but no, we'll put them both into the Donovan McNabb tier with the Game Boy games. Next, we have... I left it back here. Madden 64. Yay! This is the equivalent of Madden 98, but it didn't release in time. It released a few months into the NFL season. And I decided that it's a different enough game, not just because it has a different title, 298, because this right here was the very first Madden to use 3D models instead of 2D sprites. And as a result, the game is surprisingly not that different from the actual 98. I really like the presentation, and there's a neat first-person mode, which is fun for exactly 2 plays. The Nintendo 64 continued to get Madden releases all the way up until 2002. 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. These were all yearly releases that got the actual, like, you know, they had the real title instead of them being called 64 or something. So as a result, I kind of consider them the same thing as the PS1 games. Maybe somewhat controversially, because they are slightly different. Same thing with Genesis and Super Nintendo. I could field arguments that those are actually 2 distinct games, but I don't think the differences were meaningful enough just based on looking at gameplay footage for me to, you know, play both versions. I hope you understand. I guess the every in the ranking of this, you know, it could be up to interpretation. You could say that I left some out, or that I should have had more, that I should have done less even, because things like Madden 2001 and Madden 2002 in the Game Boy Color, different title, that's the same game, my friend. And there are many such examples, of course, in the Madden series. Okay, without further ado, moving on to a new generation of Madden. We have 2001 on the PlayStation 2 with Eddie George on the cover. The first Madden without the big guy himself. Instead, they started to do players, but it's also the first one to have the Madden curse applied to the guy on the cover. Now, if you've never heard of it, the Madden curse was because it, in later years, like the more covers they did, the less often this happened, that the person who was on the cover of Madden was cursed in some way to... Basically, it would derail their football career. They would either have a bad season the next year, they would get unlucky, or just their career would sometimes fall apart. Eddie George here had one more good year, and then his production kind of went down a cliff. So, victim 1 of the Madden curse right here. And for the game, this is the dumbest part of the entire video, because when this came out, when Madden 2001 for the PS2 came out, it was such a quantum leap ahead of any other football game that had ever been made that it just left everything in the dust. This is the game responsible for making Madden the football series, because this was so much better. Normally when Madden goes to another system, it takes them a while to find their sea legs, and they're not, you know, up to snuff right away. It takes them a few games to figure out the new platform, but not so on the PlayStation 2. They had this right from the fucking get-go. This is so much better than the PS1 games that it's crazy. The back of the box says compete in the only game that matters, and yes, when this came out, it was a PS2 launch game. This was the only game that mattered. It goes without saying the graphics are much improved, and they are. In Madden 2005 Hall of Fame Edition's bonus features, they say that this game right here, Madden 2001 on the PS2, had more polygons in a player model than the PS1 game had total, which sounds like bullshit to me, but they did say it, so I'm gonna mention it here. And the players do look fantastic, by the way. They look so good that they were more or less unchanged for most of the PS2 generation from here. They got a little more detailed, but this was the general skeleton they used the whole time. The franchise mode was deeper than it ever had been before. Passing felt better, running felt better, it had more plays, it had hot routes. This was when Madden started to control basically more or less how you're used to it these days. This is also the one that introduced Madden cards, which was a thing during the PlayStation 2 generation. They were sort of like in-game collectibles, sort of like trophies in Smash Bros. There were some utilitarian reasons to have cards. This was before Ultimate Team. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't like team building. Some of them were like cheat codes. Some of them unlocked retro teams. Like, this game still has the historic teams, which were a Madden staple dating all the way back to 93. But you had to unlock most of the really good ones. This is a tough one to rank because when it came out, it was fantastic. But every other Madden game on the PlayStation 2 is better than this one. So I can't go too high. We're going to go Brett Favre tier. Next up, 2002 with Dante Culpepper on the cover, and this guy seemed like he was going to be the next generation of awesome quarterback for the 2000s. He was like the new Randall Cunningham, but it never really panned out. He had one amazing season with the Vikings, a couple meh seasons with the Vikings, one more amazing season with the Vikings, and then his career was basically over, and he sucked for like 2 or 3 years, and he was out of the league. So the Madden curse bites another. He was really a 2-hit wonder. Calling him a 1-hit wonder isn't that fair. This was the first one to be multi-platform, as in this version of the game came out on multiple systems. It came out on the GameCube and Xbox as well. 2001 was just on the PS2. Or also PS1, but that version of the game was only on the PS2. This one added NFL Europe teams, which, if you don't know, was a short-lived league of American football in Europe. For some reason, that's where they thought the minor league would be best served. I guess it's just sort of like a global outreach thing. It failed, and by the end of the 2000s, it was gone and obviously out of Madden because it didn't exist anymore. I also really liked how this game handled the Texans expansion, because the Texans aren't a game when this starts, but in year 2 of franchise mode, they knew that they would be. So if you do franchise mode in this game, there's an expansion draft after the first year. And that's interesting because I believe this is the only Madden game to ever have that. It's pretty cool. It's fun how this is the year that the Patriots won the Super Bowl, yet they're one of the worst teams in the game at 74 overall, and Tom Brady isn't even in the game either. If you want to play as Tom Brady, you have to make him yourself. He technically should have been in this game and the last one because he was on the roster for 01 too. Something I've always loved about 2002 and the first couple of PlayStation 2 Maddens in general is how they handled the player ratings. It is the only era of Madden to ever get the player ratings correct, because normally Madden uses the IGN scale where everybody is between 80 and 100, which is stupid, and I hate that. And if you're a really crappy player, maybe you'll go as low as a 70, but not much below that. But this game uses almost the full scale. Your third string quarterback is going to have a 40-something overall. Only 6 quarterbacks are in the 90s, 11 are in the 80s, which is about right. Half the league have good to elite quarterbacks, and the other half doesn't. Trent Dilfer is the top free agent, fresh off leading the Ravens to a Super Bowl victory, after which they famously released him, and they never made it back. At least not until like a decade later. They have Create a Team in this game, which is a little goofy as an adult going back, but as a kid I had a lot of fun doing the Create a Team mode. Nowadays it's tough to imagine there being other NFL teams, because we've had the same 32 for the last 23 years now. But you have to remember the Texans were brand new. This was a Wild Westy, eyes wide open era where there could just be new NFL teams sometimes just getting added to the mix. It's sad that we've lost that. I think it's about time. Has the NFL ever gone 20 years without adding any new teams? Is this the first time? This might be the longest drought ever. This is a great evolution on 01. The gameplay itself, I would say, is not that meaningfully different, but it introduced loads of new stuff. The franchise mode is a little bit deeper, so it's up a tier. Then, of course, naturally, 2003 had Marshall Faulk on the cover, and this was the end of the Rams dynasty. They won a Super Bowl, they had a successful season the next year, and then they made it to the Super Bowl the year after that and lost. I don't know off the top of my head whether or not he had good stats or not the rest of his career, but I do know that the team, we could say that the team was Madden cursed after this, if not Marshall Faulk himself. I don't remember if he did well after this or not. This is another Madden that got the ratings right, and of course Tom Brady is finally in the game. 6 in the 90s, 10 in the 80s, so it's even more balanced than the last game by one quarterback. This game added the preseason. Yay. Who the fuck wants to play the preseason? I always just sim it. This is the one that introduced holding down R2 to see the play preview, which playing 01 and 02, I was thrown off because every time I would push it to see the play art and it just wouldn't come up. But other than that, I really didn't see much of a difference between 02 and 03. The franchise modes seemed to be mostly the same, aside from the preseason. They added the minicamp minigames to this, the training things that let your player attributes go up, so that's pretty cool. Those are iconic to the PS2 Maddens and a worthy addition. But other than that, this wasn't a revolutionary Madden, this was another evolutionary Madden. I would put it on the same level as 01 and 02. Still a great game, but, you know, not quite as great as Madden would get on the PS2. This is one of the ones where I don't see much of a reason to go back to. I guess if you're hankering for the really accurate ratings of the early 2000s, then this is the one to revisit, because it is technically a step up from 02. Just a tiny one, though, not a huge leap. But then, you know what's next. 04, with Michael Vick on the cover. I don't even need to tell you why this fits into the Madden curse, you know. Probably the most legendary Madden game of all time, right? This right here. This is the Madden. Like, this is the one at the top of everybody's Madden tier list. Everybody knows that this is the best one ever. As an adult, like, this was not my childhood Madden. I didn't play this one until I was an adult. I was an 05 baby, so that's the one I have all the nostalgia for. But this one, going back to it as an adult, I can see that many of the things that I really liked about 05 actually got their start in 04. This is where all of the owner mode stuff in franchise mode first made an appearance. Like, we're setting ticket prices, doing advertising budgets, where you just have complete control over every aspect of the team in franchise mode, which is amazing. This is endless entertainment, the franchise mode in the mid to late 2000s Maddens, and this was the first one to really be endless, where I could just play the game forever and never get bored. They did, however, forever fuck the player ratings. They would never recover from this. They're fucking bonkers. 27 quarterbacks, up from 16 last year, have a rating of 80 or above, which is just far too fucking many. Some really don't deserve it, like 2002's coverman Dante Culpepper. He had a couple of really shitty years after that cover season, and they still overrated him to hell. I know he had a great season in real life this year after the game came out, but they had no way of knowing that he was going to rebound. Of course, 95 speed on Vic is like cheating. In Madden 2004 tournaments, you couldn't even use the Falcons because he was too good. One of the best video game athletes of all time. This one added online, which on the PS2, who the fuck was playing online? Don't answer that. I'm sure someone was, but I sure as heck wasn't and never have and never will, because it probably can't even do it anymore. An underrated feature that this one introduced that I really appreciate is the ability to view the box score after you've simulated a game. I like looking at box scores, and I'm always disappointed when I play a sports game that doesn't let me do that. And this is considered one of the best Madden games, nay, one of the best games of all time for a reason. This is legendary. Easy Patrick Mahomes tier. What can be said? It's fucking Madden 2004. Then we get to 05. This is the collector's edition, which is not the one I had as a kid, but it's the one that you gotta get now if you're going back and revisiting the Maddens. There's no reason to play regular 05 over this, because this has everything that has with a whole bunch of extra features, and the extra features fucking rule. We've got Ray Lewis on the cover, who was found innocent for murder. He went to court for murdering some people and was found innocent, so he breaks the Madden curse. Almost fell victim, but not quite. This was my childhood Madden, and as an adult, if I'm being honest, as I said, most of the things that I love about this game were also present in 04, but, you know what wasn't? The new UI. They went to dark mode with 05, and I appreciate it, because the late 2000 Maddens, I believe, had a better aesthetic than the early ones, and 04 still had the light mode white backgrounds, which were a little weird. The minicamp and owners mode are the same from 04, which is okay, because that fucking ruled. The big addition on the field in this game is the hit stick, where if you use the right analog stick at the right time, you can really lay into the offender and cause fumbles and stuff. And it's one of the best feeling things to pull off in any football game. It was truly genius. They had to sell Madden 2005 for less money because 2K undercut them. 2K5 came out, which is a fantastic game in its own right. I prefer Madden 05 to 2K, but that's another story for another time. 2K5 still amazing. Don't come after me. Like, I think it has more bells and whistles than regular 05 anyway. I think Collector's Edition probably has a beat on bells and whistles, but like, the extra stuff is better, but basically I like the field better. I like actually playing football better in Madden than I do 2K. As a kid, I used to just play franchise mode and stay on the main menu so I could listen to the Tony Bruno show. This game has a fictional radio program that would update with things going on in your franchise, which is amazing, the way it was procedurally generated, and they would just come up with new things to say that actually reacted to the goings on around you. It was amazing, and there was trivia and stuff. I learned so much just listening to that. Every song in this game is just iconic in my brain. I know whatever one you played the most of is the one you're going to have the most fondness for the songs, but for me, it's this one. I really love the video of everybody just saying EA Sports. It's in the game at the beginning. This is how every EA Sports game should start.
Here we go! Woo, woo. Here we go, Brownies! Here we go! Woo, woo. EA Sports! EA Sports! It's in the game!
It's a shame they stopped it after a couple years. There's a procedurally generated newspaper, which would also update like the radio show to the goings on that were happening in franchise mode. And the Collector's Edition adds even more shit. It has Madden Moments, which are a whole bunch of historical scenarios you can recreate in the game, which is awesome. You have Madden Classic, Madden Vintage, and Madden Retro, which I honestly didn't know about until I got the Collector's Edition many years after I was a kid. Basically, Madden Classic is a remake of Madden 93, only with the new rosters ported back. And then Vintage is 97 with the new rosters. And then Retro is the PS1 version of Madden 2005, which is incredible. It's like getting 4 games in one. Like, this game also contains Madden 93 on Genesis and 97 on PlayStation and 05 on PlayStation, and you can just play them? That's fucking badass. There's a director's commentary over an entire game. Like, I'm serious, a whole bunch of developers sat in a room and played a full game of Madden 2005 and just talked over it like a director would on a movie.
We're just going to play the game. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do here. First time we're trying this one. Our marketing group thought it might be cool for us to kind of talk over a game like directors talk over movies on DVDs.
In real life, I am a Chicago Bears fan because of this game. I am not kidding. I didn't have a memory card as a kid, so every time I booted it up, it would ask what my favorite team was, and the first team on the list was the Bears. And then, of course, in 2006, they won 13 games and went to the Super Bowl. And I would keep up with them. Like, whenever they were on national TV, I would watch, and I would watch it on ESPN. I would keep up with the team. That was a lot of fun. I had so much fun keeping up with my, quote, favorite team in Madden 2005 in real life that I became an actual fan of the team. Too many great memories. Too great of a game to not also put it in the Patrick Mahomes tier. Then 2006. Will they continue their legendary run on the PlayStation 2? Technically, this is the first year where it's no longer the flagship version of the game, because 06 was also released on the Xbox 360. But if you know anything about the Xbox 360 version of Madden 06, you know this is still by far the superior version, because it's built on top of 2 of the greatest sports games ever made. This game, in addition to having my boy Donovan McNabb on the cover, who unfortunately did fall victim to the Madden curse. He broke his leg and missed an entire season, and when he came back, he just wasn't as good a player. So this game introduced 2 new things that are awesome, and 1 new thing that is pretty controversial among Madden players. The first one is Total Control Simulation, which is when you're in franchise mode, you don't need to play every single play. You can set it up so you can pick the play, and it'll just sim for you. And that's a welcome addition because especially like when you get a lead or something, you don't always want to play the whole game, or maybe you want to sim the first half and just play the second half. That's a cool addition. It makes franchise mode more fun and faster to get through. It also introduced the career mode, and it's also probably the best version of the career mode because they never meaningfully made it any better. They pretty much just stuck to what they developed here and didn't do anything with it and degraded it and made it worse over time. So if you're going to play a career mode, honestly, playing it in 06 is probably the best way to do it. The only weird thing about it is that you can't pick your position. You're randomly assigned one, and if you don't like the one that you get, then you need to back out of the mode and start a new one again. It's very bizarre, especially since I got kicker for my position. Imagine actually doing a full, it goes 20 seasons, 20 season career as a kicker. That would be so stupid, especially since I wasn't even the starting kicker. I got drafted and I was second string. That's fucking stupid. The voice messages in the career mode are cumbersome, and they knew that because they got rid of them in the future games.
Just wanted to see how your move went. I heard you got a nice little place over on the east side.
When I was doing the career mode, it's really funny because the game asks you like interview questions and stuff, and one of them, it slots in the names that it mentions based on what position you are, and they're asking me whose jersey do I have already in the NFL, and one of the choices cracked me up because it was like, yeah, I have a Martin Grammatica jersey in my closet. And the idea of anybody owning a Martin Grammatica jersey was very funny to me. Of course, the controversial thing this game introduced was the vision cone, which was an attempt to gamify the awareness stat. If you've never played a Madden game, basically the awareness stat is a stand-in for how smart of a football player they are. It's, you know, it's what it sounds like. It's how aware they are of things going on around them. But, you know, when you're actually like playing the game yourself, that doesn't really make a difference because you're the awareness stat. The awareness stat is in your brain, especially for quarterbacks because you're making all the decisions. The awareness stat mattered in Sim, but that was it. They tried to make the awareness stat a gameplay mechanic by introducing this vision cone for every quarterback in the game that you would control with the right analog stick, and basically the receiver you're throwing to needed to be in the vision cone or else your passes weren't accurate, and the higher your awareness stat, the bigger your vision cone is. I could take or leave it, honestly. I think it's kind of fun to mess with. I don't know if it makes the game better, but I do appreciate the attempt to try and gamify the vision cone. If you really hate it, then you should probably go play 04 or 05, but if you don't mind it, or you actually think it's a good mechanic, then yeah, the 06 and 07 and 08 are the ones for you. Amazing video game, of course, continuing the run of legendary Maddens in the 2000s. This was also the first year that EA had the exclusive NFL license because they bribed the NFL so other companies couldn't make games anymore, which, you know, the fans say that this was the beginning of the end of Madden because they got complacent and they didn't put as much effort into the games, but it took a while for that to manifest because this is still amazing. Patrick Mahomes tier, easy. Next up is 2007, and I actually ordered the Hall of Fame edition because I expected it to have bonus features like 2005 did, only to be sorely disappointed because the main bonus feature is a reality TV show called Madden Nation about these guys on a bus playing Madden. And yes, I watched the whole thing. It was kind of fun. I won't lie, it was kind of funny. The game itself remains mostly unchanged from 06. They added a goofy FMV cutscene to the beginning of career mode with you in full pads walking up to the Hall of Fame before your career starts, like, yeah, one day I'll be in here. It's pretty stupid. And they're pretty lenient about whether or not you make the Hall of Fame either. You could play like 2 good seasons and then retire and the game will just be like, all right, yeah, you're in. If they changed anything at all about franchise mode, I didn't notice it.
It's the EA Radio Show with Tony Bruno.
I mean, mechanically, for the background, you get this really shitty render, which looks like it belongs in Lego Island. Like, look at this. This looks so stupid. It's cute that it's putting you like in a football office, but it looks so bad. You could tell this year that they weren't focused on developing the PlayStation 2 edition. They were more focused on next generation, rightfully so, because 06 on 360 was such a debacle. They really did need to focus the resources on next gen to make that game up to snuff with this. They even knew that the next generation of Madden was bad because in this reality TV show, They're playing Madden 2006, but they're not playing the 360 version. They're playing it on the original Xbox. Not PS2. It's funny because whenever the PS2 is mentioned or they're playing it on PS2, they always need to blur it out because they didn't have the rights to that. But yeah, another Mahomes tier. It's mostly the same as 06. You can't go wrong with either version. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the Madden curse. This is Sean Alexander of the Seahawks. He set the single season NFL record for rushing touchdowns in a season this year, which immediately got broken by LaDainian Tomlinson, and he never had a good season ever again. And within 3 or 4 years, he was out of the league. So yeah, the curse claims another. Then they came out with NFL head coach, which I'm not going to rank, but this was basically EA's attempt to bring the FIFA Football Manager series to NFL football. If you don't know, there's a long-running soccer series where you don't actually play the game. All you do is manage the team. And that is what this is. You don't actually play any football games. You're just in charge of managing the team, making personnel decisions, doing all that. If you really liked messing with the rosters and all of the nerdy stuff that they added to franchise mode, this takes it to the next level. I didn't play it for the first time until a year or so ago, and I unexpectedly actually had a lot of fun. I actually played the one on 360 more than this one. There's this NFL head coach, and then there's NFL head coach 09. Those are the only two they ever made. They're actually kind of fun, and I like them. No rating, though, because they're not technically a Madden game. Does this look like Madden to you? It's not. Then, the iconic Madden 2008. This was on everything. This is the Scott the Woz meme, and it has Vince Young on the cover, who, I don't know, in order to fall victim to the Madden curse, I think you need to be good in the first place. He had like a pretty average rookie year, and then they put him on the cover of Madden, and then he was never even average again. He was just bad. He was just straight up a bad quarterback. He is the lowest rated tier of this video for a reason. He is the only legitimately bad quarterback, at least, to be on the cover of Madden. This is an iconic game because it was the last PC version of Madden. The PS2 version is based on the PC version, or the PC is based on the PS2, whichever order you want to go in there. The only real addition it added was player weapons, which really doesn't do anything to the gameplay. That's something they stole from NBA Live. Basically, it's like each type of player they assigned a symbol to that's supposed to like shorthand tell you what they're good at, but it doesn't work as well in football as it does in basketball, and most of the time that just means that your good players have a star next to them, which is a feature that really doesn't do anything. Again, the ratings are fucked. In fact, they are the most fucked they have ever been, I would say. In franchise mode, it's basically the same, but they took out the Tony Bruno show. Why would they do that? It was in 05, 06, and 07, but it's not in this one. Other than that, it's basically the exact same. Superstar mode is pretty much the exact same, except now you're finally able to change your position after not being able to in the last two ones. This is an iconic Madden, but really only because it was the last man standing on PC, and there were so many fan mods, and there were so many tools to mod this game yourself. As a kid, I remember discovering that all you had to do to change the art assets in this game is open up the folder, open up Paint, and just like change it. That's all you had to do. There was no protection or encryption on it whatsoever. You could just change all of the art assets in this game, which was incredible and a lot of fun to play with as a kid. And you know, as well, fans have had a lot of fun playing with that, you know, taking this to the whole next level. So if you're going to play a PS2 Madden and you're a PC gamer, then yeah, download a copy of this because there's so many mods for it. It makes it great. But other than that, again, they were focused on next gen, not the PS2 gen, because this is mostly the same game. But we still have a lot of PS2 Maddens to go. Starting with 09 with Brett Favre on the cover. Does the Madden curse really apply when you've been in the league for as long as Brett Favre had been at this point? He was in the league for like 17 seasons, I think, by the time this game came out. So like, if he fell off after that, is it really the Madden cover's fault? I'm going to say no. But also, yeah, he never was that good. I mean, he had the good season with the Vikings after this, I guess. But his season with the Jets, that's actually funny. He's in a Packers uniform in this because he retired and then they put him on the cover of Madden. But then he came back for the Jets. So later reprints of 09, I'm not sure if the PS2 version had this or not. He's actually in a Jets uniform. I don't think I've ever seen a Brett Favre Jets uniform cover in person. They're a lot rarer, but it's a 50-50 shot when you see the cover of this game online. He'll be in a Jets or a Packers uniform. And this one, they actually changed a decent amount from 08. They changed the menus up quite a bit anyway. They changed up the training mini games, which were getting a little long in the tooth at this point, been around since 03. But this passing one sucks anyway. I can't even see the sidelines. I feel like I need to throw to the middle every time. There's a new family play mode, which I think just means no team ratings, like everyone's equal, and they simplified the playbook. Oh, and it also auto sprints. In a way that's forward thinking, it's making this the first Madden with auto sprint. The big addition here is Super Sim, at least for the PS2 version, which is huge. It's basically like a better version of Total Control Simulation because you don't actually have to pick the plays. It just does everything automatically for you. There are 33 quarterbacks with an 80 overall or above. Snooze, so it's like the entire fucking league could have a quarterback that's 80 or above. That's stupid. I hate that. One of them was Brian Brom, who I had to look up who that even was, and it turns out he was Louisville's quarterback in 2007 when Syracuse beat Louisville when they were 35-point underdogs. I remember thinking that win meant that Cuse was going to have an amazing season, and then they went like 2-10. So yeah, they just got lucky that one, and Louisville wasn't that good. There's no more cone. The vision cone for quarterbacks is gone, so hallelujah if you hate that. If you want a late 2000 Madden and you really hate the vision cone, then this is the one to get. For me, though, I don't like the UI as much. I don't like how it runs on the field quite as much. It's mostly unchanged, but, you know, menus matter. I think when you make the menus worse, you make the whole game worse because you spend time in the play calling menu so much in football games that it really just drags the whole thing down. Not much. Oh yeah, this is the one that got rid of NFL Europe teams because that folded by then. I don't think this is much worse than 08, but I do think it is worse. I would much rather play 07, 05, 04. I would play any of the ones before this, before 09, and that's why it's Tom Brady tier. Not quite Patrick Mahomes, but Tom Brady tier. Then we have Madden 10 with Troy Polamalu and Larry Fitzgerald. I think we can safely say that the curse didn't affect either one of these guys because they had long, illustrious careers even after this. I'm still bummed about this Super Bowl, by the way. The wrong team won. Everybody in the world was rooting for the Cardinals, including me. I was rooting very hard for them. And, you know, that pick six by the fat guy made the whole difference. I don't remember his name, but yeah, just at the end of the half, that play changed the whole complexion of the game. So this was a Goodwill game. This is a game I got at Goodwill. This is still the copy. I did not give this one back to Goodwill. You know, because at the end of that, I gave most of the games back. And I made a startling discovery in that Goodwill video that this game has no commentary, which is bizarre. Other than that, though, it's pretty much just 09 again. A fun game, but only because the ones before it were a fun game that it built on top of. This was sort of a chintzy product. I mean, look at the artifacting over this Madden 10 logo. It just looks bad. Doesn't seem to run as well as the games before it. But, you know, it's still fun. We're going to go Tom Brady tier, just because it's still a PS2 Madden, and they never really got bad. Next up is Madden 11 on the PS2. I don't have the case for it, so here's just the disc. Drew Brees on the cover. By this time, in, 2011, we're getting up there in years for the PS2. It's kind of a dinosaur, and they didn't give a fuck anymore because this is literally just 10, but they changed the logo to say 11. Same game, they didn't do anything new. Fucking shouldn't even talk about it. Same tier. Tom Brady tier. Just for shits and giggles, they actually made one more with Peyton Hillis on the cover. This is another case where does the Madden curse of even apply if the player was never good to begin with? He had one 1,000-yard rushing season, which was okay, I guess, for a pretty shitty Browns team, and that was it. Yay. The fans voted him on the cover. They didn't pick it this year. That's why he got on. And yeah, as you would expect, this is exactly the same game as 11. No differences. Same tier. Still a good time if you happen to see it. Sadly, that concludes the greatest generation of Madden, the PS2 generation of Madden. Now, there weren't that many spin-offs this time around, much like the PS1 generation, because I'm including the DS and the PSP versions as a part of the 360 generation, leaving us with just the ones that came out for this thing, the Game Boy Advance. There were 6 Maddens released for the Game Boy Advance, starting with 2002, and at first I had absolutely no idea what was going on with the soundtrack. I thought the ROM was borked or something. but I realized very quickly that they adorably attempted to convert some of the songs from the real Madden 2002, as in the licensed soundtrack, and it's just a horribly bit-crushed version. Finally, for the first time in a handheld Madden, we can do quarters shorter than 5 minutes. Thank God. And even better, for the first time ever in a handheld Madden, we have real players. Hallelujah. Thank the fucking Lord. And rightfully so, as you might expect. It's an adaptation of the 16-bit era Maddens. Only, unlike the Game Gear and Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance actually has the horsepower to pull it off. It feels the most similar to 95 to me, and I like 95, so that's a great thing. There's even some voice lines in this version. I'm not a fan of how the Madden and Al Michaels portraits look, but hey, at least they're here. Oh yeah, and I guess I forgot to mention that. Summerall was replaced by Al Michaels starting in Madden 2002. And not having grown up with Summerall, Al Michaels just feels the most correct for this role. Next was 03, which is pretty much mostly the same game, except also has the training camp and stuff from 96. Not much to report here because they're mostly just retreads of the 16-bit games. 2004 was much of the same. The big innovation this time I noticed is when you pass, the screen actually tilts a little bit to give you a better view of the field, which is a nice addition. We're just gonna put 02, 03, and 04 into the Drew Brees tier along with Madden 95 and 96. So with 3 successful Maddens under their belt on the Game Boy Advance, you would think that 05 would be more of the same, but wrong! They completely remade it from the ground up. For the worse, in my opinion. Not that it isn't impressive. Seeing 3D on the Game Boy Advance is always a little cool, but the gameplay is a lot worse. I like the menus, I like the UI, I like how they emulate the real Madden 2005, though the attempt to faithfully adapt Madden 2005's menus adds to some really weird clunk, such as the extra features menu that contains 2 options, credits or the Madden Bowl. I clicked on Madden Bowl, and it's a single image of Dwight Freeney, Syracuse legend, holding up a trophy, and it looks horrible. That's amazing that they thought to include this as a special feature, as if it's some kind of worthwhile addition. I think I might have loved this if I had it as a kid, but as a bitter old man, I just see weird, oddly done 3D jank, and the ball is way too big and cartoony, and the screen is jittering, which is no doubt because of the emulator, but still it's distracting. We're gonna go Michael Vick tier for 05 on the GBA. 06 is basically the same game if they changed anything on the field. I didn't notice. They added this 6-player mini-game thing, which I'm not gonna give them any credit for, because who the fuck is gonna link up 6 Game Boy Advances to play Madden on the goddamn Game Boy Advance? I do like how they adapted the mini camp drills from the PS2 games. That's kind of cool. But yeah, this is the same game, Michael Vick tier. And then, believe it or not, they managed to squeeze one more game out of the Game Boy Advance. And guess what? It is the exact same thing as 05 and 06. Impressed with the early era Game Boy Advance Maddens, not so much impressed with the late ones, but I will at least give them props for attempting to do a 3D to try and remake the series halfway through the Game Boy Advance. They could have easily just released the same game 6 years in a row as opposed to releasing the same game 3 years in a row twice. All right, let's move on to the real stuff with Madden 2006 for the Xbox 360, and only the Xbox 360. This did not come to the PS3. So this is one of the most infamous Madden games of all time because they made a fake trailer that they showed off at E3 and trade shows and stuff, presenting the trailer as if these were in-game graphics, but they were not. The in-game graphics were significantly uglier than the ones that they used in the trailer. Classic scummy EA bait and switch shitty business practice. This was a launch game for the 360, and it kind of shows because this was an obvious rush job. Gone are most of the features that we saw in the PS2 versions of Madden. Put this side by side next to the PS2 version of Madden 06, and you will see a bare bones product with almost none of the depth that game had. There's no career mode, which was the huge addition for 06, but not in the quote flagship version. There's no training camp. There's no total control sim. On the field, the graphics are higher fidelity than the PS2 games, no doubt, but I don't know, I think they're uglier. Just the way everything meshes together. The camera angle is too low, and I can't find any settings to change it. This was actually my first time playing Madden 06 on the 360, despite its infamous legendarily bad status. I had never tried it out until now, and it is both as bad and not quite as bad as I expected. The lack of things to do in this game compared to the PS2 ones is shocking. The fact that all you can do is play a game or do the most basic franchise mode in the entire series is laughable. On the field, it's stilted, but it's not more stilted than like the PS1 games. And I really liked the UI and the menus. I know I bang on a lot about the UI and the menus and the responsiveness of them, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think if they made 07 to look like this, I would have a much higher opinion of that game, because for the next few Maddens, I really hate the UI and I really hate the menus. So it was surprising to me to learn that 06 was different. And not only was it different from the ones that I had already played before, it's actually much better. I managed to trade Rex Grossman on a first round pick for Drew Brees, so that was pretty cool. It's a shame that I then only played one game in franchise mode. That's a good start to a franchise, if I do say so myself. This is a tough one to rank. It's one of the quote worst Maddens of all time. On the field, as I said, I don't think it's any worse than like the PS1 games. And I do really like the menus and stuff. Is Lamar Jackson tier 2 crowded yet? I think we can add one more. We can add another game to that tier. Next, naturally, was Madden 2007, the Hall of Fame edition. Now, why am I holding the 360 copy of the game, but all of the footage is going to be from the PS3 version? That's because I ordered this online, and they only sent disc 2, which is the one with all the reality TV show and stuff, and they didn't actually send the game. They didn't realize it was supposed to be 2 discs, I guess. So I can't actually play it on 360. 07 is still an incredibly stanky game. I think it's stilted when you're on the field, especially compared to the PS2 versions. It runs like shit too, and I thought that this might be because of my fat PS3, but I switched to my slim PS3 just to make sure, and it was running just as poorly. I don't know if this is the game or just the PS3 version, but it was noticeably choppier than 06. There's no commentary in this game, and there was no commentary in 06 on the 360 either. So apparently this wasn't just a late PS2 problem. The early 360 games didn't have commentary either. There's still no Super Sim or Total Control Simulation or anything, so you're forced to play the whole game. Another thing the PS2 version has that this one doesn't. Superstar mode is in the game this time, but it's kind of fucked up. There's no apartments, there's no cool contextualizing with messages and stuff. It's just the same menus, you get the whole game, which suck, by the way. I hate the menus in Madden 07. It's just so sterile. Training camp drills are back, sort of. They're a more realistic style where you're more mimicking what an actual NFL player might do. Like, here's the passing one. You're not throwing through hoops or throwing to training dummies. It's actually like a live defense situation, which, fair enough. This is more like what an actual training camp would be. This one has the vision cone. I'm pretty sure the 360 version of 06 did not, but they brought it into the next gen with this. Except it doesn't work as well as it did on the PS2. I don't know, it seemed a lot more finicky. This is just Madden 06, but spruced up a bit. Not spruced up nearly enough. It's still bad. They added back some of the missing modes, but when you're actually playing football, it's still not a great Madden. I guess just for the missing modes, we'll move it up to the Josh Allen tier, but still not a great game. Then 08 with Vince Young on the cover, another stanky-ass Madden. I was incredibly disappointed. I thought by the time we would get to 08 that they would start to be figuring this out on the 360, but they're really not. This is, again, just another spruced up edition of 06 and 07. It has the same dog shit menus we had in the last game. When you're on the field, it feels almost the fucking same as 07. I wasn't aware that Madden sucked for this many years in a row in the 360. This was actually kind of eye-opening. Yeah, another bad Madden. I have to put this in the same tier. It's just not fun. It's mostly the same game. Finally, with 09, I can actually see where some of the development went towards, because so far on the 360, it's felt like they've barely fucking done anything to the game so far. But here with 09, you can actually tell they developed some stuff. starting with the Madden IQ nonsense. This is where when you start the game, it makes you do a whole bunch of drills to test how good you are at Madden, I guess. This one had a really interesting idea in that it wanted to have adaptive difficulty. Like if one game you throw for like 450 yards, it was going to adjust the passing sliders to make it more difficult. Or if the other team ran all over you last game, it would make the run defense easier. It was an interesting idea and they never really tried to iterate on it after that. I don't think gamers want difficulty that adjusts to them. I think they just kind of want to have the power fantasy of doing well with their favorite NFL teams. Oh yeah, this one also added rewinds, and they're on by default, as in something bad happens in the play and you can just hit X and redo it. You're allowed to have one rewind per game on as a default, so you have to go into the settings and turn that off. Another thing that they never really tried to do in any other Madden. Even though I'm not a big fan of 09, I will say the play calling menu is better, and I can actually tell that they tried to improve. Now, does it actually result in a game that I would rather play? Not really. Honestly, I think I'd rather play the Madden games on the Game Boy. It's still built off that horrible strain of Madden from 06 on the 360, and you can tell that this was still built on top of that, which really just has dragged the whole series down on 360 to this point. I did not expect to be so down on Madden this far into the 360 because I had very little experience with the early 360 games. I'd only really played 07, and I knew that one kind of stunk, but surely by 08 and 09, I thought they would at least be getting better because I had played 010 as a kid, and I liked 010. Why am I calling it 010? Just call it 10. Anyway, yeah, I guess Josh Allen's here for 09. Then we can get to an actually good Madden game. The first good Madden game on the 360 is 10, and it's because they clearly remade everything from scratch. This was not an evolution, this was a complete teardown and rebuild, and thank God they did, because it's actually pretty good. And it has Iron Maiden on the soundtrack. Finally, for the first time on the 360, we actually have fucking commentary. Oh yeah, 08 and 09 didn't have commentary either.
All that time, we got the straight change, but when a change-up is effective, it is a pretty sight to see.
There's an in-game highlight show during franchise mode, which is procedurally generated. This is the kind of shit that we were missing in these franchise modes that we have not had since the PS2 ones. Finally, the features are catching up to the PS2 games. 10 is a lot of fun, and the score bug actually looks like it's from a TV broadcast. The presentation got leveled up. There's more features, there's more modes. Jay Cutler is on the Bears instead of Rex Grossman. They have these really ugly 1920s throwback uniforms that you can wear, which are really cool. Finally, the UI during franchise mode is not dog shit. This is a solid Brett Favre tier Madden. 11 with Drew Brees on the cover is more of the same. This is an evolutionary Madden, not a revolutionary one. This is the one that introduced game flow, which is like if you don't feel like picking your plays, you can just have the game do it for you. It's also the one that introduced Ultimate Team, which is not something I'm really going to be covering in this video because I've never played it and I've never had any interest in playing it. I know that's a huge part of Madden, but it's never been a part of the experience for me, so You can't even play the one in this game anyway because the servers are long down. You got to play pretty much the most recent one, right, for that to even work. This one's just getting tossed into the same tier. I really didn't notice much different. Then Madden 12, the culmination of the Xbox 360 versions of Madden. Finally, they've been slowly adding feature after feature after feature back to the 360 editions that we lost, making the jump from PS2 to 360. The franchise mode is now just as in-depth. You've got a really cool create a team thing is back. You can just create a team and do a franchise with it. Again, as a kid, I had fun with this, but as a crusty old adult, I just can't imagine ever getting into that ever again. The career mode is a little improved, but still not great. I still wouldn't put a lot of stock into it. I still wouldn't play this over the PS2 ones. Unless you're counting mid-2000s, this is peak Madden menu design. This is the best they would ever be on the 360. Oh, and 12 really gamified the preseason. They actually made the preseason something you want to participate in because it had cut days and you didn't get your player ratings until the end of the preseason. Like your rookie players come in and there would just be a question mark next to their overall. So there's actually an incentive to play the preseason games to decide who you want to cut and who you want to keep. And you don't get to make the decisions right away because you don't know who. Like, you actually need to play the preseason games, and a Madden game making you care about preseason is an astonishing feat. On the field, I can definitely notice a difference between this and 11, though I'm not sure which one I prefer. In fact, I might even like playing 11 a little more on the field, but the extra modes make this by far the best Madden on the 360, I would say. If I'm going to play any of these games, it's going to be 12 every time, pretty much with no exceptions. This is a Tom Brady tier Madden. It's real good. Then we have perhaps the most controversial game in the entire Madden series. Madden 13, I don't have it on 360, I only have it on PS3, was a complete rebuild from 12. After they had finally figured out how to do Madden on this generation, they decided it would be best to completely redo the game from scratch. And I don't hate it, but I'm also not a big fan. The worst part about this is that we lost all the features again. All the bells and whistles in franchise mode that had slowly been building back since the PS2 games. We never got everything back. We never got a radio show. We never got newspapers. We never got all of that cool stuff. But the franchise mode was the most in-depth that had been in the 360 generation. And then they tore it down and replaced it with another bare bones piece of shit mode that is not worth playing. But when you're on the field, I like Madden 13. They went with a more physics-based system as opposed to predetermined animations, which is a decision that the Madden series would actually walk back and they would go back towards predetermined animations later. But for now, they went with like a pure physics system, and it's kind of fun. Again, it kind of runs shitty, but I think that might just be because of the PlayStation 3. I think that EA just didn't care about the PS3 as much and the games run shittier, because this is now the second game that I've played where the PS3 just... it's chugging a little bit. 13 is sort of like they wanted to get a jump start on the next generation of Madden, but the PS4 and the Xbox One weren't ready yet, so they just had to release it on the last generation. It's alright. I don't hate 13, but I do think it's a little disappointing. We're gonna go McNabb tier. Then we have Madden 25. Yes, they really called it that. Even though it wasn't the year 25, it was called this because of the Madden's 25th anniversary. Yeah, what a fucking stupid decision that was, and it resulted in a whole bunch of confusion, especially now that 25 actually exists, like the year 25. It has the same shit menus as 13, it has the same crappy franchise mode that is not really worth playing. The reason Barry Sanders is on the cover is because it had real Hall of Fame players. It's the first time they actually got the rights to use a whole bunch of retired guys. It's meant to be a celebration of the Madden series, but the bells and whistles come nowhere close to 2005's. Not even whiffing the extra features that one had. There's not older games remade, there's not developer commentaries, there's not reality TV shows even. The way they throw you a bone is there is now an all Madden team, which has already kind of been a thing for a long time, and there's also like a general Hall of Fame team, which is cool. The difference being that the Hall of Fame team uses historic NFL players, like the best of all time. Well, the Madden team is supposed to represent who the best players in Madden history are. Now, these are not one and the same, and it's illustrated by the fact that the starting quarterback for the Madden team is Michael Vick, who is by no means one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, but in terms of the best quarterbacks in Madden history, he's up there. Simulating games in franchise mode is painstakingly slow, and for that reason alone, I probably would never play this one seriously. It's a shame that the features are basically the same as 13, because on the field, I think that this one controls even better. Now, that might just be because I'm playing it on 360, because the improvement got better immediately. This game doesn't run like shit anymore. I wonder why. Probably just because it's on 360. So anyway, yeah, I guess... but subtract a tier for the PS3 versions of all these, or add one if I played it on PS3 and for the 360. You know what the fuck I'm saying. Whatever. Alright, so there's 3 Maddens left on this generation. Same as the last one. I don't remember what the last one was. Next one. Madden 15. On the PS3. That's all I have it on. They make you do a whole bunch of shit before you can actually play the game, which is frustrating. I hate that. That was where this started. And the first thing your cursor is on when starting this after the dumb cinematic stuff is Ultimate Team. Ow. That sucks. That was just me trying to make myself throw up. It just didn't work. The sim is still slow. The menus are just like 25. On the field, it runs like shit, probably because it's on PS3, but I'm gonna say it's because of the game. Fuck this game. Fuck it. Fucking, I don't know, Josh Allen's here. Madden 16. Wow, they really got up to 16 on the PS3. They sure did, and it's the same game. And guess what? They made a 17 too, but that's the same game as well, so same tier. Well, that was kind of fucking depressing. The 360 era of Madden is where we clearly see the series start to lose its way, leading into modern Madden, and y'all know the public perception around that, but let's cheer ourselves up a little bit because we got another round of spin-offs to cover, starting with the ones for this beautiful beast, the PSP. All the footage you are going to see I actually captured with my PS Vita, though, because believe it or not, if you hack that thing, you can just get video out from the charging port. And I was fucking blown away by the PSP Maddens. If I could go back in time and give my kid self a PSP, because I never owned one. I bought this PSP like last year. I didn't own a PSP until last year. And I didn't get a Vita until like 2014 or 15. So as a kid, I was a complete Nintendo handheld baby. If I could go back in time and give myself a PSP and a copy of Madden 2006 for the PSP, I might have become a better person. It is that good. It is just an adaptation of the PS2, which if you've been watching the video, you know how highly I regard those games. And it's like 90% as good. There's no career mode, but that's pretty much the only thing that's missing. It still has the mini camp and the newspaper and all the shit that you love about the PS2 Maddens. And when you're on the field, it's actually fun and plays like the PS2 games. And man, it like brings a tear to my eye knowing that there existed just a whole strain of Madden games that I didn't know about on the PSP that are incredible. This game is awesome. Like, I might regularly play the Madden PSP games now that I know about them. They're that fucking good. I'm gonna buy a real copy and play it on my real PSP. How's that sound? I'm gonna be the hipster douchebag playing this thing everywhere I go, even though the PSP is not cool anymore. At least I would, but my battery on this thing only holds like a 20-minute charge, which sucks. They even have Total Control Sim, so you don't have to play every play. Fuck, I love this game. Oh my god, Madden 2006 on the PSP is so fucking good. Oh, it's so good. We're gonna go Brett Favre tier. Like, oh my god, it's amazing. 07 is pretty much the same game, except it introduced this very awkward mode where you have to hold the PSP sideways. This is almost like a smartphone game before smartphones. All it is a player continuously running and you need to juke in the proper direction to avoid the defenders. I was pretty terrible at it. This adds nothing. But hey, at least they're doing cool things, right? On the field, if it was any different, I didn't notice. And let me just say, I am so frustrated that I was stuck with the fucking DS versions of Madden as opposed to these as a kid. I would have loved the PSP Maddens. I would have loved these games if I had known about them. Like, not only did I not have a PSP, I didn't know anybody who had a PSP. A PSP was some shit that just nobody had where I grew up. It was all DS, at least all my friends. Nobody had a fucking PSP. And if they did, they sure as heck weren't playing Madden on it. Oh my, it's so good. They're so good. Oh, they're so good. 08 is the same game as well. I mean, hey, if you got it right the first time, why bother changing it? Then 09 is almost the same, except you view the defense from the wrong angle. Seriously, it's upside down. What the fuck were they thinking? I suppose if you're gonna do something wacky like this, you need to put it on the PSP versions before trying it out on the PS2. It's stupid, but I suppose it was a worthy experiment. In 2010, they fixed the defense, but it's the same game otherwise. Also, it has commentary. Why does the PSP version of Madden 10 have commentary when the PS2 version does not? Why? Why? Same with 2011. It's the same fucking game. Same with 2012. Same shit, different day. They're all going in the same tier. These are fantastic. These are the best handheld Maddens, and will remain that way probably even if EA releases Madden games on the Switch, if I'm being real. Then we have the Madden games for the DS. The only one I own is 08. All of the footage you're going to be seeing is from an emulator, but I did actually put them all on my R4 card and try them out on a real DS. So I did play them the way God intended, but yeah, the footage is emulated. It was always weird to me that the DS games had different player ratings from the PS2 and 360 ones. Generally, the ratings were the same no matter what Madden you played, but the DS ones was like doing its own thing. It's especially startling that you're allowed to have player ratings of 100. I believe these are the only Madden games where your rating can go all the way up to 100 because it just ended at 99 before. Including a map of the entire field is cute, but not super useful. I suppose it was ambitious to go 3D for these, but as a result, they just kind of come off as shittier PS1 versions. Yeah, I would rather play the early Game Boy Advance ones for this, but I still squeezed a lot of fun out of the DS Maddens when I was a kid. So we're gonna go Josh Allen tier. 06 added franchise. 05 did not have it on DS. There's no fancy sim options or anything, but at least you can do a legitimate franchise mode. They added touchscreen bullshit to kick. You need to swipe up, which worked pretty well when I was playing it on a real DS, but attempting to kick on the emulator was a bitch and a half. The UI was clearly modeled after the PS2 versions of 2005 as opposed to the PS2 versions of 2006, which is not a bad thing. I really don't have a strong preference one way or another. I suppose 05's is a little preferable to me, but not by much. 07, they changed up the UI, and the gameplay seemed to be mostly the same, except for one key difference, and that is they changed what screen the game itself is on. Now you look at the bottom screen to play instead of the top, which I wonder why they changed it. Not that it makes a huge difference, but it's just weird to me. 2008 on DS, I have a lot of nostalgia for this one, but it's pretty much just 07 again, with one key difference. They added paper football. There's a mini game where you play paper football, and I spent more time doing this than I did actually playing the real game. It's very addictive, and it even has a 2-player mode, so you can play it with 2 systems, or you can just pass the same DS back and forth. A lot of fun, paper football is. They got rid of the touchscreen kicking. Now it's just the exact same meter from the PS2 games, which was welcome. They really haven't meaningfully done anything different with the Madden games, though, like when you're actually playing. 08 now has these ugly buttons on screen, like A for audible, DP for, I'm not gonna say, a question mark. There's just a bunch of shit you can touch on the screen, which I'm not a fan of. They kept going on the DS with 09, which added a couple more mini games, but they're not nearly as fun as paper football. Thankfully, paper football is back, and it's the exact same it was in 08, so you can just play that. If they changed anything about the game itself, I didn't notice. Oh wait, yeah, they did change something. Now we have these squares with bevel edges as opposed to circles that we can touch. That's the difference. Hi everyone, for some reason I forgot to rank these DS games. They're all going in the same tier. And then I forgot to talk about Madden on 3DS. Madden on 3DS I had never played until this, and even then I didn't play it on a real 3DS. I played it on an emulator. Yay! It's based on the Wii games, but I haven't talked about the Wii games yet, so I'm gonna put it in this tier. This one right here. Okay, back to the video. Alright, well, we're getting there. We're getting there. I am tired, I'm exhausted. But we have the Wii games to do, starting with 07. Now, don't let the case fool you. Actually, do let the case fool you. I do own the game. But these are the only Wii ones I was able to find, so I didn't get them all. If you remember, longtime viewers will remember in my Goodwill video, I found a Wii, a black Wii, that would not read discs. For this, to play all the Madden games, I modded that Wii so you could play games off the SD card. So that's where all the footage is coming from. But anyway, the Wii Maddens are probably the most interesting strain in all of Maddendom. They beat to their own drum, and they underwent drastic changes over the lifespan of the system. 07 right here is basically just the PS2 Maddens with a new UI, though obviously they added motion controls, and Over the course of the Wii generations, there were a lot of iterations of motion that they tried to do. This first one, you flick the Wii remote, and there's 3 different kinds of passes. You do it soft, and it's a lob. You do it hard, it's a bullet, and in between is kind of like just a normal pass. For me, this means that 9 out of 10 throws end up being bullets because I just force it too hard. And in order to pick your receiver, you need to hold down the button to what you want to throw to, which basically just makes throwing slower than in a normal Madden game, because normally all you have to do is hit the button, but in this case, you have to hit a button and flick the Wii remote. Takes a second to get used to. The motion controls in this one feel tacked on in very much an unnecessary kind of way. The hit stick waggling the nunchuck, though, I will say is more fun than it has any right to be. Madden 07 on the Wii is an interesting one. I would much rather play this than the 360 or PS3 one, but of course it's nowhere near the PS2. It's just the PS2 Madden with dumb motion controls tacked on top. But the PS2 Maddens are amazing, so we're gonna go Brett Favre tier. 2008 on the Wii introduces a Wiimote only mode. 7 required you to use both the Wiimote and nunchuck. What's impressive to me about the Wii Maddens is that everything is here. Everything from the PS2 editions of these games made the jump over to Wii. Meaning that these first 2 games are actually pretty feature-rich and really not what I expected. I had never played any of the Madden Wii games aside from a little bit of 09 in my Goodwill video. I do have one major complaint with 08 though. The FOV is fucked up and I can't see the receivers. And at least when you're playing with the Wiimote only and no nunchucks, there's no way to zoom out either. 07 had this too, but snapping the ball by pulling the Wii remote back is one of the most bullshit things ever, and it sucks and I hate it. Basically, with these first 2 Maddens, it's like, do you want to play a strange version of the PS2 games with motion controls? And yeah, it actually is kind of fun for a moment or two. These 2 Wii Maddens still maintain the career mode from the PS2 versions. As I said, everything is here. But for the FOV reason alone, and maybe it's biased because I just played the Wii remote only mode, 08 was a little worse than 07. We're gonna go Drew Brees tier. Madden 09, if you recall, was a Goodwill game, but unfortunately I gave that one back to Goodwill, unlike the one on the PS2 from earlier, so I had to rebuy it for $4. Woo. This is the year they went all out with the Wii-ness, if that makes any sense. They introduced this very cartoony 5-on-5 mode. I like the idea of this, but did they have to make it look so stupid? It almost reminds me of NFL Street or The Yard in modern Madden. 09 doesn't feel like the PS2 games with a weird skin over it. It feels like they actually made a Madden game for the Wii. And of course that comes with all of the good and bad it entails. The main breakthrough is in this game, instead of holding down a button to throw to a receiver, you're actually supposed to aim the Wii remote in the direction you're trying to throw the ball. And yeah, it works about as shittily as you might expect. Now, if there's 1 receiver to the left and 4 to the right, and you just throw it to the left, then obviously it's going to go to the 1 guy to the left. But say you've got trips on the right side, you just throw it in that direction, and it's a fucking crapshoot. You have no idea who's going to throw the ball to. I really like the addition of me's all over the play calling menu, with a special shout out to this John Madden me. Presentation and weird motion controls aside, this game still does have most of the modes you would expect from the PS2 games. It is still unrecognizably Madden, which is not something I can say for the next Wii ones. 09 is interesting. I don't hate it, but I also don't think I would ever want to play it again. There was some TLC, tender love and care, put into this game, clearly. Drew Brees tier. We're going to say Drew Brees tier. Then things start to get a little weird. 2010 was the start of the ugly cartoon men, and they really started to lead into the arcadiness. The rest of the Wii Maddens don't feel anything like a regular Madden game, be it 360 or the PS2 editions. The menus look nothing like any of the other Madden menus, and you'll notice it has a completely different set of features from the regular games too. Finally, they changed snapping the ball to hitting A as opposed to snapping back on the Wii remote. And after the ball is snapped, bizarrely, everybody speeds up to a comical degree. Like, look at how fast everything is moving as the play develops here. It's weird. It's like as soon as Matt Forte got the ball, everybody just went turbo mode. There are still some Miis in the UI, but what happened to the Madden Mii? They replaced him with this piece of shit. This is like when they made weird avatars for Switch Sports. Why do game companies think that this looks better? It doesn't. With this game, you get basically all of the baggage that comes with a new generation of Madden because they basically restarted everything from scratch with 10. There are a severe lack of modes. There's no franchise. There's no career anymore. You get odd gameplay. Oh, I forgot to even mention the passing. The way you pass in this game is you point the Wii Remote at the screen, and then you choose the receiver you want to throw to, and then you push forward. It's bizarre, and it's hard to keep your aim straight while you're moving forward. In fact, it's fucking stupid. I think this is the worst passing method we've seen so far. This is an odd game. I'm gonna go to the Michael Vick tier. The lack of modes, the just strange presentation. This is a very off-putting game to me. Then, Madden 11 on the Wii, as you might have guessed, is mostly the same game, but they did re-add the franchise mode, and it has a presentation unlike I've ever seen in any other franchise mode, and I will admit, it has piqued my curiosity. I might go back to this someday and give it a real try. They also varied up the control options. In this one, you can basically choose from all of the passing modes we've seen so far in the Madden Wiis. You can point at the screen, you can do the aiming thing, or you can do the button thing, which is a gosh darn great thing. So yeah, even though this is definitely built on the skeleton of 2010, some very simple quality of life changes and the addition of franchise mode means that I'm going to move it all the way up to the Donovan McNabb tier. There's no reason to play 10 when there's 11. It's the same game but with more stuff and more user-friendly options. Then, Madden 12 on the Wii. Guess what? Is the exact same game as Madden 11. They didn't change shit. Rightfully so, the Wii was dead at this point. And then, believe it or not, again, they actually made Madden 13 on the Wii, which was not something I knew until starting this video. And yes, I really did pay $11 for this piece of crap. And yeah, it's the exact same game as 11 and 12. Same tier. Then we have a couple of interesting editions of Madden 13 on the PS Vita and on the Wii U. Yes, Madden 13 came out on both the Wii and the Wii U. We'll start with the Vita version, and calling this Madden 13 is a little deceiving because it's clearly a port of Madden 12 just with 13's rosters. And for that, it's a much better game. It's surprisingly faithful to the 360 and PS3 versions of Madden. The Vita was a capable handheld. This thing got about 80% of the way there. I'm not quite as impressed with this one as I was with the PSP versions, but I still am impressed. This is a worthy handheld Madden. We're gonna go Drew Brees tier for Madden 13 on the Vita. Then the Wii U Madden 13. I've actually played a lot of this one in my day because I was a proud Wii U owner and I had pretty much every notable game. Yes, to me, Madden is a notable game. Shit, I'm like 2 hours into the video, you knew that. And I almost hesitate to call this its own game because it is just Madden 13 on the PS3 and 360. It is the exact same game, but there are two notable differences. The first being, it runs like utter horse shit. This is one of the worst performing Maddens of all time. It's horrendous. In fact, they should be embarrassed that they released this game in this state. But the second and much cooler thing is you can actually draw plays on the touchscreen. You can draw custom hot routes with your stylus on the touchscreen, and the receivers will just run those routes. That's pretty fucking cool. Obviously, I would have much rather seen the Vita approach where they ported 12 instead of 13 to this system, but hey, I take what I can get. And I got a lot of fun out of this one when I was a Wii U owner. Where'd I put regular 13? McNabb? We have to go a tier down just because of the performance issues. Josh Allen tier. Finally, we're here at the modern era of Madden. Now, much like the differences between gaming consoles, when we get this far up the timeline, Madden starts to become this thing where I don't even really notice many differences on the field, so apologies if this is shorter than normal. I think I'm just going to speak more generally about the modern Madden series. That doesn't really apply to the first few games. I do notice a difference with these. So, the first one on the Xbox One and PS4 was Madden 25. Not with Barry Sanders on the cover, but with Adrian Peterson. This game was surprisingly tough to get a hold of because game stores don't like to put it on the shelves because it causes confusion with the new Madden 25. Like, GameStop won't even list this game on their website, and they don't put it out in stores. So I had to special order this copy of Madden 25 from eBay. One of the few games I had to get from eBay. And for the first Madden on a next-generation console, it's not bad. They've definitely made worse leaps to the new systems in the past. Something that sucks about modern Madden games is you have to wait for them all to install. You can't just put in the disc and play, like in older games. Now, that's more of a critique on modern gaming as a whole as it is the Madden series, but hey, it was annoying. I basically had to spend an entire day feeding my Xbox disc after disc after disc to install everything. Now, if you look at this side by side with the last generation version of Madden 25, I can definitely tell the difference, but it's not as stark as it's been in past years. In fact, I could even field arguments that this is the same game as the last generation, and the same things I said about the last generation edition apply here too. It's fun, and it's a worthy follow-up to 13. 13 was a decent foundation for Madden to build on top of, and we're still heading in the proper direction with 25. All hope had not been abandoned yet for the Madden series to continually get better and progress, and eventually on this PS4 and Xbox One generation, you would think at this time that, hey, they're going to add the features back, and we're going to have a pretty good game in a few years. Which would kind of be true and kind of not be true. Which brings us to Madden 15. Now, funny with this one is I don't even remember playing it back when this was new, but my Xbox remembered all of my save files from back then, which was pretty cool. The menus are still styled as they were in 25. This was another game that was definitely built on top of 13 to 25 to 15, and as you might expect, it's another incremental improvement. I like this game. I liked this game more than I expected to like this game, actually. In fact, if I ever want to go back and play a franchise mode on the modern generation of Madden, this is a pretty good contender. In fact, spoilers going forward, this might be the best out of all of the modern console Maddens. It feels next gen. This one I play and I feel like I'm getting my money's worth. It doesn't seem like this could have existed on the 360 and the PS3. Like, this one's clearly a step up from the PlayStation 3 version I played. If only because it runs better. They brought back stick-based kicking, where you flick the analog stick. That had been gone for a few years. Though worryingly, we are 3 years out from 12, and Madden has not even really attempted to add back most of the features we had lost from franchise mode. And spoilers, they're not going to either. If you're interested about this, like if you're not into the Madden series, but just because I'm talking about it, you've managed to make it this video so far, might I recommend, if I have piqued your interest in Madden, if you actually want to know a comprehensive list of all the features that were lost between old Madden and modern Madden, Soft Drink TV has an excellent video that is just a list of all of the things that they took out of old Madden from like this modern generation. It's an amazing video. He gets to about 100 different things, which is astounding. Next is the abominable, the horrific Madden 16 with the biggest fraud in NFL history on the cover, Odell Beckham Jr. This guy tricked an entire generation of people into thinking he was an amazing player based on one catch. He was alright, but he was no amazing receiver that actually made a difference towards winning games. This is one of my least favorite Maddens, and one of my least favorite games of all time. Madden 16 is ruined by the fact that they added receiver controls. This is in all of the games going forward, but it's overpowered as fuck in this one. Basically, that means that if you want a safe catch, you hold X where they catch the ball and they go to the ground. If you want a running and stride catch, you hold square or X on Xbox while the ball is going towards them and they run while they catch it. Or the most overpowered bullshit of all time, if your guy is covered and you hit triangle at the right time, he just catches the ball anyway. And it doesn't matter how good the coverage is. It turns passing into a QuickTime minigame, and it's fucking bullshit. It's fucking horrible. It makes this game so fucking dumb. All you do is throw lobs and then hit triangle at the right time, and they catch it basically every fucking time. It's stupid. It's really stupid. Other than that, the modes and everything are basically the same they were in 15, as to say they were the same they were in 25, as to say they were the same they were in 13. They're not adding any new shit, nor would they for a long time. Actually, that's not true. 17, though, not the example I'm talking about. This is not the one that added new shit. It has this horrible cinematic intro that all these modern Madden games have to fucking have, where you jump the line to block a field goal. Ah, that sucks. Remember that trend in the NFL where it seemed like every fucking game some yahoo was jumping over the line of scrimmage trying to block a field goal because it looked cool in the highlight tapes? Yeah, that shit sucked. I'm glad the NFL banned that. It was cool the first time it happened, but when everybody was copying that, it was fucking stupid. I don't think I had ever played 17 before this, and it is balanced much better than 16 was. Thank God. But other than that, like, I barely notice fucking any differences in these goddamn games. It's like a new Madden comes out and it's the same shit. They made triangle not as overpowered, and just for that, we gotta rank it higher, right? Which I'm actually behind on my rankings. I gotta rank the last few. All right, 25, we are going to go with the 25 of before. We're going to go McNabb tier. 16, we're going all the way down to Dante Culpepper. I really do think that the fucking hitting triangle to catch the ball ruins the game that much. 17, a return to form. We're going to go back to McNabb. Then, the last interesting thing in Madden history happens. And that is, 18 comes out, and it has a proper story mode. Like a weird BioWare-inspired story RPG. I'm not kidding. I actually bought the PS4 version of this game the day it came out because I was so interested in the story mode. I did not replay it for this video, however. But I can speak on the memories that I had from back then. And I remembered thinking it was cool, but there was a lot of non-player choices. This is the game where you get dialogue options that don't actually matter. Your performance when you're playing football rarely actually matters. It's usually just a pass-fail state. There's lots of you kicking ass on the football field in the gameplay, only for the cutscene to say that you lose or you got sacked or it brings you back down to earth, which is stupid. That's a video game-ass, video gamey, ludonarrative dissonancy fucking stupid thing all over this game. The gameplay itself, I need to mention, even though I'm not really an expert on this, this is the one that made the jump to the infamous Frostbite engine, which was a shift away from, as I understand it, from physics-based gameplay to more animation-y based gameplay, which isn't always a bad thing. The PS2 games work like this, and those games are amazing. But it's controversial because the way that gameplay shakes out in these games, from here all the way up until the newest Madden, the knock is that it feels predetermined, as in what's going to happen in the play is determined before you snap the ball. Sort of like in the old Tecmo Super Bowl games when the defense picks the same play as the offense, it gets blown up immediately. That sort of thing is in this Madden game and up. Like, if they just pick the right defense, you're fucked no matter what you do. And the game's animations will do some wild things to make sure that what happens on the field it aligns with the predetermined stuff that they decided. Like, before you snap the ball, the game already knows you're throwing an interception. So, like, you hit the button for the receiver, and it will just fly to a defender, even if it's, like, not even near the receiver. It's stupid. It's really fucking stupid. Blocked kicks are the most infamous and easy to point out example of this. Blocked kicks rarely happen in real life, but in this game, they happen with relative frequency, and you always know when they're going to happen because the exact same animation starts to play out every time. It is lame, but I still have fun when I'm actually playing football in modern Madden. I think they get a little bit too much shit. It is sad that they slowly stripped away all of the old features that we loved about Madden into this husk of a franchise that we have now, and they seem to never change franchise mode even a little bit. It has been basically the exact same since, I think, 16 all the way up to, like, new 25. The franchise mode is basically the exact same. But I will give them credit for including a story mode in 18. And as a result, this is probably my favorite modern Madden, as stupid as it sounds, even if the story is hokey and dumb. And oh yeah, something really stupid happens at the end of the story mode in this game. Basically, the premise of the story is you were this 5-star awesome high school quarterback recruit coming out of high school into college, and you go to Texas, like the Longhorns. I don't think you have a choice in that either. I think you have to go to Texas. And then you flunk out. This is all things that happened in the past, and now present day, you're like digging ditches or something. So, because of your past pedigree, you and your friend get an invite. Your childhood friend was another guy who played along with you at Texas, but he actually had like a good career, I think. You guys both get a shot to compete at the NFL Combine, which gets you on the radar of this reality TV show guy who's trying to make a reality TV show about somebody trying to get into the NFL. So you do that, they organize like this big charity football game, and of course, everything is riding on this game. You have to play well in this one football game, or else you'll never get drafted and you'll never be in the NFL, and if you play poorly, then that's it, it's over. Everything hinges on one game, which is fucking stupid. Like, if you're scouting a player, you don't put all your stock into one exhibition game that doesn't even matter. But whatever, for story contrivances, they do. But for most of that, I think they let you play football. They just let you do things. But the end of it is decided in a cutscene. It's like, okay, you're down 4 and you need a touchdown to win. And then there's a single option. It's like either you keep the ball yourself and score the touchdown, or you give the ball to your friend and score the touchdown. And you would think that being unselfish and giving the ball to your friend would be the one that rewards you, correct? Wrong! If you give the ball to your friend, you get undrafted. You go undrafted in the NFL draft. And if you score the touchdown yourself, you do get drafted. What the fuck kind of an incentive structure is that? Like a game that wants you to be selfish to get drafted. It's fucking weird. I always thought that choice at the end was stupid. And of course that's lame that the entire story mode has 2 endings and it's only determined by one choice at the very end. That's fucking lame. We know that. All that aside, at least they had a fucking story mode. At least they tried. Which is more than you could say for most new modes in Madden. So, yeah, we're going to go Drew Brees here with 18. 19 brought back the story mode, but it's nowhere near as good because it seemed to have nothing to do with football. This was my first time ever playing it, and I got 33% of the way through got about a third of the way through the story mode, and wow, there is very little football. It is a lot of family drama, a lot of going back to your old high school, a lot of estranged sister and father relationships. It was really stupid, especially since there wasn't even like really any dialogue choices. It was like watching a shitty movie for the 2.5 hours I played of it. On the field, it's the same shit. Every Madden is the same goddamn shit these days. Like, I can't even tell the fucking difference. It does have a story mode, and that raises it up in my opinion. We're going to go McNabb tier with 19. The story mode's not as good, but at least it's here. Then, Madden 20. I don't have it on Xbox, I just have it on PS4. Introduced Superstar KO mode, which, if you're into that, I guess. It's basically the return of, like, the arcade mode. Remember in Madden 2000 on the PS1, there was a simulation mode and an arcade mode? Superstar KO is kind of like the return of arcade mode. The idea is you build your own team with a whole bunch of different players and you just play these like weird cartoony ass games with the most bizarre uniforms you can even think of. It almost feels like a spiritual successor to the late era Madden Wii games. I like it as a mode. On the field, though, like, again, I don't notice anything fucking different with modern Madden. It's all the exact same shit. So I guess we're gonna go McNabb tier. Madden 21, which I don't have the real box art for. Shout out to Cybertron. Shout out for selling me this game for $2. It's a shame. I actually really like the box art for Madden 21. It's got Lamar Jackson on the cover. As soon as this one started, I was blasted in the face, and I was reminded of how music just sucks now. Like, what is this fucking nonsense? It's, oh my god. Like, this isn't Madden's fault. They just play whatever music is popular at the time, but like, holy shit. We have regressed so much from the PS2 era soundtracks to like whatever the fuck this is. This one added a mode called The Yard, which is like NFL Street. And actually, I like it a lot. I like it even more than I like Superstar KO. This is a cool mode. Reminds me of playing football in gym class. Again, on the field, it's the same shit. It's the same shit. When you're playing football, it's the same shit. I like how in franchise mode, in the background, you can see your coach like walking around and calling people and doing coach things. That's a neat touch to spruce up what has otherwise been the exact same mode for however many years it's been in a row. I think adding The Yard brings this up to Drew Brees tier. Madden 22 is the same exact fucking game. I was looking for reasons to say it was different, but it even has the same goddamn menus. Like, I couldn't find any fucking differences between this and 21. What does the back say? It says they redeveloped franchise mode. That's just a fucking lie. It's the same shit. They're just lying on the back of the box. Yeah, this didn't do fucking anything different. Madden 23 was the one that came out after John Madden died himself. Very sad. And another one where I basically didn't notice any fucking differences. It was the same goddamn game. It's the same goddamn fucking game. We're almost there. We're almost there. The last two I don't own physically. I have them digitally on Game Pass, so that's how I played them. 24... I actually did notice a difference. They made the passing a lot more difficult than it was in 23. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing wrong, but I can't complete a pass. That brings us to Madden 25, which, as you can guess, I really didn't see anything different with that one either. The problem with modern Madden is it just doesn't feel like they're putting their all into it. They're not developing new features at a frequent enough basis. The new features aren't cool enough to warrant buying the game over and over again. And when you're actually playing football, in the past, it would be the same for like 2 or 3 years, and then they would mix it up, and we'd get a whole new style of Madden, and sometimes that would be good, and sometimes that would be bad. Then a new console generation would come out, and we would get a whole completely different kind of Madden, but that doesn't happen anymore. Notice I didn't even split up the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X in terms of versions of Madden. Because they're the exact same game. Generations don't matter anymore. It is sad to see this series now wallow in the exact same stuff over and over and over again. It really does feel like Madden has been basically the same game since 2017 to me. Which is by far the longest stretch I could say that in Madden's history. It's sad to see the series go out with a whimper and not a bang. Well, I'm saying like it's over. I mean, Madden's going to keep going, obviously, forever, so... Who knows, maybe someday they might get better, they might get more interesting, but that's really the largest crime for me with modern Madden, is they're boring. Aside from adding a story mode to 18 and 19, the new features, the presentation, the music, just the whole feel is just wrong. It just sucks. Seriously, like, the music goes a long way. Like, put the fucking NFL Films music in there or something, at least. Like, give me the option to not have to listen to this, like... I know I'm just old man yelling at cloud when I hear... I don't know, every new song I hear, every modern music song I hear sounds like mumble rap, even though I know that's not the right term for whatever the fuck this is. I know I'm sounding like a fucking boomer when I just call everything mumble rap, but, like, that's what it is to me. I don't know. It's the same fucking goddamn shit. It sounds like shit. Everybody sounds like a fucking emo goth kid going, I don't like that. I can't stand any, like, song that sounds anything like that. I just can't get into it. It's the fucking, it's like the worst sound in the world. I thought people were, like, gaslighting me when it got, like, shit like that got popular probably, like, 10 years ago. I thought it was, like, a mass psyop. Like, people couldn't possibly think that this actually sounded good, but they do, apparently. I don't know. Well, the video's almost over, but there is one game left, if you'll notice down there, over there. Yeah, we still haven't played the mobile game. Alright, let's try this out. Okay, I'm not playing fucking Ultimate Team. Get the fuck out of here. No, it makes you click Ultimate Team. Oh my fucking lord, I don't know. I have no interest in any of this shit. Stop. No, it makes you fucking try. It makes you do it first. It makes you do fucking Ultimate Team first. All right, it's making me do this tutorial bullshit. This is as far as I'm gonna get. Fuck mobile. I don't play fucking phone games. I don't care. This actually looks surprisingly good for a game I'm playing on my iPad. They're just gonna let me score the tutorial? Okay. I guess everybody runs slow as ass. Just let me play a regular game of football. Let me play regular football. I don't want to do any of this shit. Let me leave. Let me leave. All right, Madden Mobile's trash. Bottom tier. Fuck it. Fuck phone games. I'm out. Peace. Video's long enough. Shout out to the patrons. Never trust anyone who needs a haircut. Goodbye.